going to call the Tuesday, March 21st regular meeting of the San Juan City Council to order. Jim, would you lead us in the pledge?
Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jim. Let's see. Trish, would you please take the roll call?
Councilmember Bach?
Here.
Councilmember Freeman?
Here.
Councilmember DeVries is absent. Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana?
Here. Okay, next item is public comment on items not on the agenda. Would anybody like to come forward and make a public comment? Seeing none, we'll move right along to consent items.
Move to approve.
Gentlemen, Tony's moved to approve the consent items.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Trish, would you...
Yes. Councilmember Bach?
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeVries? Absent? Sorry. Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana?
Aye.
With 4 members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes 4-0-0-1 with 1 absence. And there is a resolution on there?
Resolution number?
8.
Okay. So, item number 4, presentations, informational items, and reports. First item is presentation by the San Juan Committee. Bob, I think that's you. Nice shirt.
Thank you.
We like it.
Notice.
Very cool. Show it to the camera. There we go.
Available at the Welcome Center.
That's
Purchase, along with other items. So, as you know, I'm Bob Quaid. I'm on the San Juan Committee. Also present is Sandra Arachi and Jill Pagaran, both on the San Juan Committee. And so we just want to do a presentation on what's going on with the San Juan Committee and answer any questions you may have. So feel free to ask as I go along. So the San Juan Committee, our mission is to promote economic vitality while maintaining the charm and history of San Juan Bautista. That's our sole mission. And we're doing lots of activities to promote our mission. So we incorporated as a nonprofit, and that was last year, and we're now a membership organization. And currently we have about 20 business members as part of our membership in the San Juan Committee. And so last year we contracted with Shipper Design, and we branded the city. And the result of this branding is our logo here, San Juan Committee. And so we're using that in our promotion of San Juan Bautista. And so tonight we're presenting the city with a framed copy of our logo. And so hopefully you can display this someplace in the city.
Marvelous. Thank you very much.
Place.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And we've also used the branding. We've updated brochures. Just some of the brochures that we have. I didn't make. Did you bring copies of the brochure? But we have the city or the city events on updated. That's what you guys pass. If you want to take extras and pass them out, you're welcome to. These are all available at the Welcome Center. We're passing out the Welcome Center. And they're at the chamber over in Hollister, too?
The Dearway Welcome Center and the California State Welcome Center and various hotels.
So we're distributing these around as part of our promotion. We just updated the San Juan Committee website, and that's sanjuancommittee.com. That's our own personal website. Shipper Design, we work with Shipper Design on that, updating that. And we're in the process of updating the San Juan Bautista website into a mobile-friendly place for current information, events, and more. And that's sanjuanbautistaca.com. That's in the process. We're just starting that process to update that. And that's we'll be listing all our members, and we're hopefully to have all the businesses in town. If we are accepting applications from anybody that has a business, I know Dan's not here, but Grant Rock would be a good member of the San Juan Committee, and so would your business, Chris. And we also take individual memberships too. So, do we have any applications? No. Okay, applications are available at the Welcome Center. So
And also online.
And online at the sanjuancommittee.com. So one of the things that we've been doing for over almost a year longer is operating the Welcome Center at the bakery. And so we're providing information to the tourists and local citizens. We're also selling our T-shirts and sweatshirts. We have bags with our logo on it. And we have, we just recently found some City of History license plate covers, if anybody's interested in getting those. Those are all at the Welcome Center. Some of the other activities we've done, we're doing a monthly article in the Mission Village Voice. We're working on building a gateway monument at the corner of Highway 156 and the Alameda. That's in the process. We're still waiting some funding from one of our big developers in town to continue on that, but we're in the design stage on that and moving forward on that. The BBC came to San Juan Bautista in February, and that was on a show, I think it's Cooking with Rick Stein, and they're going to be back. They came in February. They're going to be back in May, on May 3rd, to do some filming in San Juan.
Fantastic.
So that will be promoting San Juan Bautista. We're contracting with ABC Bay Area Life to film a segment in San Juan on April 1st. So ABC will be in town on April 1st, and that's costing $6,500 to bring ABC in, and they're going to produce 2 segments that will be shown at 2 different times. I'm not sure, do we have the exact date for those? We haven't picked the exact date when they're going to show them, but that's part of Bay Area Life. And that was, we're working, the State Park Plaza Association is a co-sponsor, along with the San Juan Committee, San Benito County, and private foundation. We've also received support from that from Jardines, Doña Esther's, and La Posada that are giving services for the crew when they're going to be here. And Shipper Design has been very generous in donating time for that project too. Shipper Design has been very generous to us in helping with our branding and our website redesign and the ABC Bay Area Life and other things. We're also going to be advertising in Wine and Travel magazine in the spring of 2017. We're just getting that set up. That's a wine and travel magazine that's distributed in Northern California. It's in a lot of hotels, businesses all over through the Monterey and the Bay Area. It goes out to some businesses. I'm trying to remember major corporations where it's available in their lobbies for employees to pick up. Supposedly, they have more than 1.2 million readers for their issue. So we're putting an ad in that promoting San Juan Bautista. I don't think if I missed anything else we're doing. We've done quite a few events. Events coming up. We're doing a mixer with the San Juan Library Auxiliary on April 12th. That's a mixer for all the businesses and anybody in town. You're all invited April 12th at the library. And I believe it begins at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock? 5:30. There's flyers for that at the Welcome Center, and there's some posted around town. And then we're doing...
That's a Wednesday?
Yeah, I believe it is. We're doing the Easter Parade on April 8th. We're collaborating with the State Park and the Mission for Dia de San Juan Bautista in June. I'm not sure the exact date of that. Last year we did the holiday decorations downtown, the Christmas tree in the park, and some of the decorations in town. We did the children's Halloween party at the community center, and we were a sponsor of the Diabetes Walk in town. It was a small event in town. Hopefully it's going to expand a little bit more in the next year. Other things, we're involved in community involvement outside the San Juan Committee that helps tourism. Jill is a member of the Gateway partnership in promoting the Pinnacles in the cities surrounding the Pinnacles. I just joined the San Diego County EDC on the board, and so we're members of the EDC now.
Okay.
And Bev Miember is a member of the San Diego Chamber Tourism Committee. So we're really active. We're really trying to promote San Juan, and we appreciate the support that you guys give us, and we hopefully will get additional support in the future. And I know your budget session coming up. We'd actually like some more funding. I think one thing I missed. Oh, I know what I missed. It was another thing that we're besides the Gateway Monument. We're working on signage on Highway 101. We're going to put a billboard up on 101, and I think I have a copy of. This is the billboard that we're going to be putting on Highway 101.
Is the physical billboard up there? Or?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a billboard that we're replacing. This is actually at Bettable Road, right after Bettable Road. Mr. and Mrs. B have bought that property by Bettable Road, and there's a couple of billboards right in front of their sign there, and they're going to let us use that to put this
Wow. Fantastic.
billboard.
Did they tell you what that would have cost if you had to pay for it?
Well, it's costing us, even for, I don't know what it would cost. I think sometimes those things cost like a couple $1,000s a month to rent space.
Yeah.
It's going to cost us about $8,600 just for the
graphics.
billboard.
Yeah.
We got to change the sign a little bit. We got to change it a little bit, and we're going to put different material up there, and then it's going to be painted on. It's not going to be. They had a vinyl option, but that will only last a couple of years. With the painted, it's going to last a little bit longer. And if something happens where Mr. or Mrs. B move or don't like it, we can actually take it down and move it.
Huh.
You know, we can put it right downtown someplace.
Great idea.
So this is the
On the side of the mission.
Will there be a rental once it's started?
what?
Will there be a rental fee?
No, they're donating it to us.
That's awfully nice because it's very
Yeah.
valuable.
Yeah. And so we're working on this. This is I just got the quote from the sign maker.
Fantastic.
And so we need to move forward. We have some private donations that are hopefully going to pay this. I just got to go out and collect it.
Fantastic.
To get this moving.
Yeah.
And as part of this, in looking at this, I've also talked to some of the merchants, and I've made some initial contact with a couple of the politicians in the area, the assembly, and to see if we can work with Caltrans to get some signage up on the highway that promote San Juan. And you know those signs that say services, next exit?
Right.
So I want to, along with this, after that, see if Caltrans, because right now you see signs there that says camping, next exit. Well, hopefully it would say camping, restaurants,
Right.
gas station, whatever, next exit. So I had an initial conversation with Canella's office, and I'm going to try to set up I'm not going to try, I'm going to set up a meeting with them, and then try to meet with Caballero, see if they can pressure Caltrans to...
Yeah, you said work with Caltrans. Those words together don't.
Yeah, that's why I'm taking the approach to try to go through the politician's
Very
office.
good.
They may be more receptive to them, putting
Very
some
good strategy.
pressure on that. And so we're getting a lot of support in town.
Good.
Along with yours and from the county, from Anthony Botello. And so we're moving forward, and hopefully we can do a lot more to promote San Juan and bring in the tourists and improve the revenue for the businesses in town.
Good.
And keep San Juan alive and vital.
Thank you.
So you guys have any other questions?
I got a question, and I should know this, and I don't. Is the San Juan Committee like the Chamber of Commerce for San Juan Bautista?
It was initially when. Is it? I don't know. It wasn't when it was first established. Okay, it was when the chamber went out of business. The San Juan Committee was set up to
Fill the void.
to promote San Juan Bautista. We are, at that time, it wasn't a membership organization and it wasn't a nonprofit. So we've established it as a nonprofit, and we are a membership, and so we're morphing into kind of a chamber to some degree. We're not a true chamber, but we're doing some of the similar activities. We have no paid staff, which a lot of chambers do, so it's all volunteerism. Jill and Sandra put in a lot of time on the committee, and it's not a chamber, but it's similar to some degree.
Yeah, because Granite Rock was a member of the San Juan Bautista Chamber of Commerce.
And I
when it
hope
was
you
one.
become members of the San Juan Committee.
Well, that's what I'm kind of getting at. If
it's our membership is well, I don't know. Granted,
For a company your size,
Could
it's
be more-
just about $10,000 to
it's my whole annual salary.
it's $75 for a business in town, and I'm gonna have to check to see if Granite would be considered a business in town. It might be a little bit more for Granite. We might be able to give you a deal, Jim, or maybe Jim can join.
I was
us.
just saying that we were active
Yeah.
members of the San Juan Bautista years ago, and then we've never done anything since
And
then.
like I said, for a business join, it's $75, and that $75 gets you on our website, and then you benefit from all the stuff we're doing to try to bring tourism into the town. And one of the things we're doing is we're trying to coordinate, because with the businesses in town, there's a lot of businesses, and a lot of them are trying to do things on their own, or with the merchant association, they're trying. It's not always really coordinated together, so we're trying to coordinate it so there's a group effort, and it's more effective effort to use the dollars wisely.
Fantastic. I would encourage you to put together a proposal for the budget for next year, because as you pointed out, those meetings are going to begin, next month probably? So we're beginning to pull together budgets in the very near future, and it would be helpful to have that information on the front end of that process rather than trying to react to it.
Or what do you?
No, I'd like to, well, I mean, I think it would be more productive to have some specifics for, what you'd like to use the money for, what you need our support for more specifically, but yeah.
Okay. Tony, you had a question?
I was gonna say, I misplaced it. I got a really nice magazine. I think it was San Benito County Chamber of Commerce.
That's probably from the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
A real nice spread on San Juan.
Right, and,
Yeah.
and we advertise in that, and we coordinated with some of the businesses in town to put together kind of a group ad on that, so we could kind of focus in on San Juan Bautista. So we worked with the San Benito County Chamber on getting that spread done.
It's on my desk if you want it, Tony. You handed it to me.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
What is the link between the San Benito Chamber of Commerce and the?
Well, we're members of the San Benito Chamber of Commerce,
Okay.
and Beverly is a member of the Tourism Committee over there. So there is a slight link, but we're not part of it. When the San Juan Committee first started off, we were under their umbrella. And when about a year ago, there were some concerns of us being under them for insurance purposes and stuff. And so then that's when we broke off, formed our own nonprofit, and became our own entity. And like we're a member of the San Benito County Chamber of Commerce, and we coordinate our efforts.
Okay.
But there's no direct connection between the two of us.
Okay. Anything else?
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Can I assume that you developed a color palette and maybe a style guide as part of this whole effort?
There is.
Okay. I might want to look at that if we end
Okay.
up doing this website thing to
Kathy,
see possibly
Shipper
coordinate.
Design?
Yeah, Shipper
They're
Design has
phenomenal.
that, but we have
Okay.
a copy of it, so we can forward it.
Okay.
We can forward that
Yeah.
on to Matt.
Do you know Kathy Shipper?
Yeah, she's on the strategic plan committee.
Yeah, they do fantastic work. They're just
Yeah, Shipper Design has been
Class A.
great for us, and they've been really generous to us. So I can't thank Shipper Design enough for all their help. No, Kathy Shipper has been wonderful. I can't say how much she's done for San Juan Bautista.
Yeah.
So we all owe Shipper Design a gratitude of thanks.
Agreed. Okay, well, thank you, Bob.
Any other? Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Geiger, Treasurer's Report.
Well, good evening. First of all, I'd like to say, Mr. Quaid and the group are doing a great job. I've never seen, I've been here almost 25 years, and you guys are really doing a great job. Thank you. All right, well, there's a heartbeat in San Juan. No, okay. Just to give an update on the Treasury report. Once again, you received this packet of information. I'm sure you read through it diligently the last several days.
Yeah. You want to quiz us?
Quizzes. Okay, so on page 3, I'm asking you one question. No. Just an update here. San Juan's doing really well. And I just, I've been now the city treasurer for 5 years, and it's the best I've ever seen. So congratulations, you guys. Things look good. And I know there's a lot of good projects coming up. And anyway, I just want a few highlights here. Our general fund is doing well. We're definitely in the positive. We've actually showed an increase over the last year by $200,000, if you read the bullet there. Big portion of this money comes from planning income and the offset by higher capital expenditures in the current year. The general fund's doing good, very well. And the second bullet is about the enterprise funds. That's our water sewer. We know we've had a net loss, but look at how much it's come down. The net loss right now is $55,000. That's not much at all compared to our overall budget. The prior year we had a loss at this time of about $235,000. So that's about a $200,000 swing, which is really, really healthy. Cash flow is positive. Once again, the revenues, there's a slight increase in the revenues over this time last year. And the general expenditures, that's what I like about Roger. He doesn't like to spend money. We keep the expenditures down. That's what I like. Roger's old school, Low on the expenses, high on the revenues. So, but anyway, Roger's doing a good job for the city. Just a couple comments. If you guys noticed the warrants that looked a little high this month, we're generally around $100,000. I think, Roger, we have it's about 40 grand of it's really coming back to us.
25.
25 grand. Okay.
Grants and refunds.
Okay. So there's some big ones there.
And that's the Del Curto Brothers construction. So will be reimbursed for, and that's expenses related to the bus stop over at Abbey Park. Okay.
We received the money already.
Okay, great. So that was funded by the COG, County COG, Council of Governments.
But we still have to write the check. And
Understood.
No, it's already paid and we already got reimbursed.
Reimbursed.
Fantastic.
Okay. And then the city of Hollister, I believe that's our fire, isn't it?
Yes.
Our fire. We get that about 3 times a year, right?
And
Roger?
Quarterly.
Quarterly.
Bryant Jolly, that's our auditor, is it not?
Yeah, they audited us.
Wow.
But we good. They said we are flying well, no problems. Okay, so anything else on the warrants that jump out? Questions?
Brigantino.
Oh.
Lots of sewer pipe and water pipe and valves.
Oh,
We're gearing up for replacement of the line on 5th Street.
Got it. That's that's a short section of 5th, is it not?
From Mission to Franklin.
From Mission to Franklin. Oh, no, not a short.
No.
It's
Fantastic.
about 580 feet.
Fantastic.
It's a 2-inch water line in there. We're going to upgrade it as well as the sewer.
Wow. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, those pieces are expensive for some reason. They're very pricey when you're doing that kind of stuff. But like I said, it's Roger's built it into the budget. We have it there. I think the statement of revenues and expenditures is one page is really good to look at. It's page 1 of 4, and it's good to let the public, aware that these documents are available at the counter. Anybody can come and take a look at them. Keep it transparent. Just a couple comments about it is, if you notice, we see that we have about looks like around almost a $7,000 increase in property taxes, which is normal because it's about 2% property per property. So that's okay. The other revenues, notice there's a big jump on the other tax revenues. we showed almost a $66,000 increase on the other tax revenues. But I do want you to be aware that, it's on your agenda to talk about grants tonight. I believe later on in the agenda you can talk about it. Maybe getting a grant writer. Our grants are dropping off, and it really takes time, and it takes good training to write the grants. So something you're going to consider later on. I think the big one you look at the bottom is impact fees. Roger, you want to comment on the impact fees? This has to do with our new, you may want to mention that.
Well, recently we haven't had any impact fees, but the processing of the subdivisions, the plan check and the inspection fees have been paid, and so that's where most of the revenue's been coming from.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The other piece is, Roger, later on down the bottom where the capital expenditures, this was a big one for us this year. Was this the police car? The 73,000?
Yes.
Okay, wasn't there something else besides the police car? Was there another big expenditure?
Yeah, we bought a new pickup.
Oh, that's right, we bought so each one of our city workers has their own truck now, which is, they're not running around two, they're all single, which is good, I think. At least we can move them around quicker. Anyway, if you look at the bottom, it talks about the fund balance, and you can see that it comes up to like the number one bullet, roughly 200,000 if you look at the bottom of the page. We're on page 4. But those are really the highlights. The other pages show you the individual, shows you more of a breakdown of the expenditures in the different departments. I don't know if anything jumped out at you that you had a question about.
No.
Nice looking pie graphs. Are yours in color? Mine are black.
They are.
Yes, they are.
I think that's about it. Any questions from the council? Okay.
I keep asking you for
Oh.
different enterprise funds and their balances.
Yes.
Parks, rec, whatever.
Park, I'll put that down here. I'll write it down. Park, I'll bring it to you next time.
Trish,
Um,
would you add that to the agenda for the next meeting as a discussion item? And we'll take that up.
Right.
Because I think we'd like to talk about it.
You want to see?
We want to see the fund balances. We
Fund
want to
balances
understand.
for the-
What's in parking, what's in.
Right, I understand that. So if
I'd
you
like
take a note, we'll pull that information.
Yeah. I'd like to talk
Every
about
time the
it.
impact fees are, money moves into those accounts. It's just kind of a,
Yeah, we understand that. I think there may be opportunity there, and we should look at it. But none of us are very familiar with it. I don't think it's one of those items that we look at once a year, and it sort of gets
I brought it
lost.
to you about 6 months ago, and it's been a while since we talked about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a reminder about your 700 forms.
Oh, yeah.
We all have to submit those. I have mine. I'll put it in your box. Trish is always the last minute, 24 hours. Get the thing turned in, and it's, you just have to go print it, and it doesn't take long, but
Yeah.
she's a bulldog about those 700 forms. We'll get those things in. Anyway, thank you very much, and see
Thank
you
you.
next month.
The 700 forms he's referring to are financial disclosures that we have to fill out, elected officials have to complete for, it's the Fair Political Practices,
State of California.
State of California Fair Political Practices Committee or Council or something. Commission, is it commission? Commission, thank you. So that's what she's referring to. It's
some we file with the
annual or
city,
every other year.
And some we file with the county.
Right. So, so we have to have those in by April 3rd, I believe.
I have to mail them April 3rd.
Okay.
If I filled them in, then when we first came on, does that count?
You, I believe you filled it out when you ran for office, and I have that one, but I need one for assuming office for you.
And John, I believe AMBAG requires a separate one.
And AMBAG will go to the county, the city council will come here.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chuck. I don't believe we received a sheriff's report. We did receive a level 1 security report. Do we have any questions about that?
Yep.
Anybody have anything on that?
Isn't
No.
that works, 15 pages or something?
It's,
Yeah.
it's
I reduced it to say.
riveting reading to it. They're out there, that's all I can
I
say.
told JT that the next meeting is to more consolidate it and kind of summarize it. you
Sure.
know, Yeah.
Kind of like the sheriff's report, like
Yeah.
number of incidents of a particular kind, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
the detail for you guys and
Yeah.
just a little pricey for us. Okay, and
You know,
we,
the one thing I did find interesting,
what's that?
the unlocked doors in businesses.
Yeah.
Why don't you walk out of your business, go home and leave the door open?
He actually said that they had dramatically decreased,
Yes.
so,
So a little publicity goes a long way.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that had dramatically improved, which is a good thing. Okay, so, and I don't believe we received a fire chief's report. That's unusual. We do have a library report. Any questions or comments on the library report? No? And that takes us to the administrative report. Roger?
Yeah, just quickly on the Public Works, were really impacted by the trees and from that windstorm, you know, and they got caught up here now, and they're accelerating to get ready for the arts and crafts and cleaning the streets and getting ready. And with this rain here, it kind of interrupted the striping and the painting and stuff like that. But as soon as the weather clears, they'll get back onto that, and so you'll see some significant increasing in the crosswalks as well as the red curbs and stuff like that. Okay, I'm going to turn Matt
Since
over
I
to
can
the
do planning,
planning.
since
Yeah,
you can't
right.
talk very well
Yeah.
currently. Planning has been very, very busy. We had some of the last steps with some of the larger housing projects at the last planning commission meeting and city council meeting, and so that we've pushed those through now, which is one large burden off our shoulders. But then at the same time, we're now getting a large push for a bunch of smaller projects. This next meeting, I have 3 site and design reviews, I have 3 conditional use permits. Let's see, I'm working with Nick. Trish and I just met today about getting him a computer so that we can get him set up with the new building permit software, and then I can start doing the training with me and Carmen and Nick to hopefully get that implemented. Code enforcement, we finally went back and started doing something related to chickens. Nick and I built a retaining coop over at the Public Works yard, and then started putting out a system of putting out traps and relocating them once we catch them, so that's good. I'm going to get Nick to start quantifying that so I can give you guys some numbers on what we're doing. We can decide on whether we want to do more or less, but we just really need to get started because it was getting a little out of control. I've been contacted by quite a few people about weed abatement. I think that usually starts in April, but I noticed that too driving around town, and that's definitely something that I have an ongoing list, and we're going to probably just do a drive around day and fire off tons of letters, and then I'll work with Nick on following up and making sure all that stuff gets cleaned up. So.
And if you get too soon on it, and it comes back on you, so we have to wait until they've met their maximum germination and everything, and then it starts to die, and that's when we want to catch it, so then it won't come back on us.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's kind of cross purposes because when we collect the chickens, then they don't scratch it and ruin all your landscaping. So.
Yeah.
And then to finish up Rogers too, sorry, the last thing on the administrative report here, was on the well sites. I think the Copperleaf project has gone through enough now where we are getting a hold of that well site for well number 5 finally. Right. So Roger's been working hard on getting that pad built and getting ready to drill there. And then we've also been working really hard on the well number, what we're calling it well number 6, which is the well number 4 alternative that we settled on, and it's down to 1 of 2 locations right basically across the street from well number 4. And we're sort of in the last stages, hopefully, of doing that right now. So,
and we're also finishing up the final details on the pellet plant and the pad, and I'm accelerating that. And I've talked with a couple contractors, and we're going to next month get it out to solicit the council authorization to receive bids on doing the pad and the slab.
Okay.
And the plumbing and electrical.
For the pellet plant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Yes, Mr. Bach.
One thing I'd like to, from the cemetery board, I'd like to thank you guys for taking those big tree trunks, and the cemetery rented a chipper, so we used it for about 2 or 3 days and then turned it over to the city and let them use it, because we had to rent it for a week anyways, so it was kind of a trade thing. And, but we appreciate you letting us get rid of those. And then as far as the chickens go, there's this huge white rooster on koalas.
Uh-huh.
And the sucker seems to think everybody should be up at 3:30 in the morning.
We
I
don't,
appreciate it if someone would put some effort into finding that sucker, putting them in a pot.
well, you know, I mean, how I started was, just so people know, I had gotten some code enforcement complaints about a specific location, contacted the owners. They had one chicken they were keeping, but then there were a bunch of feral ones that I think thought it was cool because there was already one there. And they gave me permission to have the guys go out and put traps on their property. And so, you know, if anyone else is tired of the chickens in their area and are willing to give us permission to put down some of those little traps, you know, we can do that. So feel free to contact me and we'll put you on the list. So. And one of the hens we got was sitting on top of 17 eggs. So I count that one as, you know, an 18 chicken haul.
Wow. 17 eggs.
17 eggs.
Cow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, anything else? John, Jim, any questions, concerns? No?
On the administrative?
Yeah.
No.
All good, okay. So I think that I won't speak for everybody, but I will ask you guys, we absolutely, top priority should be the pellet plant and that well number 6.
Yeah,
Clear, right?
absolutely.
Okay, we're all on the same page. We need that pellet plant up as quickly as possible. And not just because I'm spending $50 a month to rent a water softener. It's going to be a big benefit for everyone.
Hey, I'm trying to nurse my water softener or my water heater along until...
Yeah. Okay.
The only other question I have is on your iWork software. Has that already been acquired, and you're using that now, or?
We're not using it yet just because I haven't had time to do the implementation, and we need to get Nick a computer because he's going to be... I'll be using it some in the office, but I really need to get him familiar with it so that when he goes out and does inspections with Roger and stuff, he can come back, put that in. And then I didn't even mention the other aspect, which is taking all of our paper files and getting those just straight up data entry to get it just a record in our system and electronically of all the ones we've issued over the past 10, 15 years. So I have to set up the spreadsheets and everything for that, and I just haven't had time quite yet for that stuff.
I know when our company did that, we hired a firm that came in and just put all that stuff on record. Mm-hmm. Because you don't really have to think about it. You just have to type it in.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Well, I think we possibly have someone who can do it, but we could also hire someone outside.
John.
But that might be something to look into as well.
It was cost effective for us to do it that way.
Did you have any other questions?
No.
I'm sorry. Bob, did you have something constructive to add?
Who's Nick? We keep hearing Nick. We also
Nick,
say, who's
Nick is one of the city employees.
He's the engineering tech. So he does sort of part public works and part building inspection / engineering work with Roger.
And maintenance too.
And maintenance, yeah.
Not to be confused with Nick that used to be the cop.
No.
So he's working in the office.
No, he's
Outside,
mostly out and
inside.
around.
Mostly outside. At this point. Okay.
And I think one additional thing to let you know is Matt and I met and we're having a meeting with Lloyd Bracewell, and this year I put some funds in to start on that sludge removal, and we're planning on implementing a press that can compress the sludge and get it in so that then we can ship it out on solid blocks on a truck. Yeah, so.
Screw press is
Squeeze
what it's
the
called.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, anything else on the administrative report? No. Okay. City Council committee reports. John, anything for us?
Yes. Went to AMBAG, and they're doing their planning for their 30-year out transportation plan for the Troy County area. the good news is that the 156 expansion, which is running from the Alameda to Union Road, as you know, is one of the 2 or 3 major projects that stayed on the list and is going to be funded sooner than later. You know, for example, Highway 25, which gets a lot of publicity around here for various reasons, none of them good, did not make the list, and so they're not going to get that. If there is a resolution, it's not going to come for a long time. But so the good news is it's going to be sooner than later, but they wouldn't tell me when.
Okay. Tony, anything?
Okay, Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council. I already told Chris I was glad he pointed me to this because I appear to be the youngest one in the council. But their main concern right now is funding. They get most of their funding from the state, but there's a lot of federal funding, and one of the things they're really concerned about is the Meals on Wheels. Excuse me. So hopefully they have an executive director that goes to Sacramento all the time. Seem to be under control. And then on COG, we're talking about what AMDAC is doing. COG broke down a list of different roads that are going to be worked on in San Juan Bautista. They took out several, the roundabout at First Street, roundabout at San Juan Hollister Road, and Avenino Drive construction, and connecting Lane Street to the Alameda. That's all in the I don't understand their terminology, but unconstrained, but under constrained, which is supposed to be funded, the roundabout at the Alameda and 4th, roundabout at McCollum Street and Monterey Street, roundabout at 3rd Street and Donner Street, which is at the new subdivision going in, and then a pedestrian crosswalk at the intersection of the Alameda and Highway 156 on the east side of the Alameda.
Good.
And then the possible construction of a 3rd Street to connect to 1st Street. That's all COGS unconstrained. So hopefully we'll get funding somewhere along there. But we don't really get about $185,000 or something, or no, it's not even that much every year from
I
COG.
don't think your microphone is short. There it is.
Tap it.
Let's go.
Okay, good.
We only get $52,000 a year.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
Roger has to let it build up for about 4 or 5 years before it can do anything.
Yeah.
And I did mention that the other day. And then the other thing that was a big item, and they're talking about Senate Bill, or Assembly Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1, which both apply to raising gas taxes and trying to raise $6 billion for infrastructure, road. And apparently there's some, looking at the Benito link today, there's some problem with it, but I don't know, they say, well, we're only going to get 37 cents out of every dollar, but that's 37 cents that we weren't getting, so hopefully, if those pass, we might get some money to fix our roads. And we're still working on Measure P2, sales tax. That's it.
Okay. Let's see, fire protection and intergovernmental, I believe neither of them met,
No,
correct?
fire protection met.
Okay, I was not in attendance, so I'll leave that
Yeah.
one to you. And we did not have an ad hoc committee for the sheriff's contract. We've been having trouble getting a meeting in the mind for timing, but.
Well, the intergovernmental did not meet because we didn't have a quorum. The fire protection met. It was a regular. It was very disappointing because a lot of our equipment is getting old and run down and needs a lot of repair, and that's looming on the horizon for this city. Firefighting equipment. So that's something we got to be aware of. I think we've talked about one that was out of service, R64. Needs $30,000 to $40,000 to rebuild, and E17, which said 26 years old, a lot of electric problems. So that's coming up, not tomorrow, but it will be coming up. The other thing we went to, Tony and I both went to the business council meeting. They were talking about roads, and Roger gave us some information about that we've got $185,000 into roads that we're going to do this year. The county's looking at $400 million that they need for roads, and nobody knows where they're going to get it. So both those meetings were very disappointing. I mean, you didn't leave them just clicking your heels, you know.
Doesn't sound like it.
That's it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Someone told me that they took our fire truck out to Lover's Lane and drove it into 3 or 4 feet of water
That's correct,
and
yes.
screwed up the transmission.
That is correct, yes.
Are they going to repair that?
Yes.
They're going to repair it. They're going to bill us for it? Yes.
They're going to bill us for it?
Yes. We're partners.
If it's over $10,000, we have to contribute, but anything under that, they do it.
But it's going to be over. We said it was,
For transmission?
yeah. I'm not sure about that. Let me take that back.
Okay. Terrific.
Yeah, we're partners.
Okay. Let's see, the strategic plan committee report, did we have, it doesn't, I'm not,
I can do it.
okay, I thought we were getting some paperwork and other things to go along with it, but no? It's okay,
I keep minutes for that if you want me to start submitting them, but John's supposed to be, right, doing the
No,
verbal.
I understood from Shauna that they had something more substantial to.
Next meeting. They couldn't get in time, that's one of the things.
Got it, okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, just my misunderstanding.
Yeah.
So the strategic planning committee met last Tuesday, and they have 2 recommendations they voted positively out of subcommittees to the full committee and voted to send to the city council, which I'm pretty much doing now. So I'll go through them in order. The first one, the Government and Communications Subcommittee made the following proposal to the entire Strategic Planning Committee. They noted public trust in our government is at a low level, and the public often has little or no information on what the city is doing with their tax dollars. They recommend several changes for the city government. Number 1, establish regular office hours of 8 to 5 on working days. People often cannot get to the city if they work their jobs or regular to city office if they work their jobs on regular business hours. This would greatly improve the situation. Number 2, establish a public information officer position within the city. The committee thinks that this position would probably be part-time or at most half-time. The person's job would involve community engagement, emergency preparedness, communications, crime statistics, and prevention. This person would establish a social media presence on such sites as Facebook, Twitter, and Nextdoor. Nextdoor is a social media site that specializes in providing community communications for items like emergency situations, crime prevention, and community policing. It is not a gossip site like Facebook. Okay. Anyway, the community also discussed that the new city website might have many, if not all of these capabilities built into it. However, the community, the people in the community may or may not choose to access the city website in an emergency or other times because they may be more familiar with their favorite social media site, such as Facebook or Twitter. The committee felt strongly that all of the above approach would work best since it would reach as many people as possible. The PIO employee, as Public Information Officer, would be responsible for posting to those media sites the official city position on issues that are of concern to the public. This would enable citizens to access important information on a timely basis. Their opinions would be less likely to be influenced by misinformation or conspiracy theories if the correct information is presented in a credible way. That's the first big proposal. So we need to probably agendize that and consider it next month.
Great. Staff already has a written response to it as well.
Okay. Second one is the Historic Preservation Committee recommendation. The Historic Preservation Committee and Design Subcommittee makes the following recommendations. The committee requests funding for a historical walking tour, complete with an app for detailed explanation of each site, accessed by QR codes, which would be mounted on plaques on the walls of the various sites. They're considering about 12 sites right now, and you can probably name them if you think about them hard enough. The Mission, State Park buildings, the Rosa House, you know, several, the Emily's Place on 3rd Street, the old Adobe, you know, there's about 12 of them that right now they're considering that they could do. Mary Ann Steger and Darlene Boyd are busy designing the plaques. So they think they would be made of probably a resin-based material, because if you make them out of bronze or steel, people steal them for the scrap metal value. You know, so if you make them out of resin, it doesn't have much scrap value. And Darlene says that she can put a sheen or plate behind the resin that makes the resin look like metal. So,
Okay.
Good looking.
Good.
They can make them also out of aluminum too. And
Oh, that's got a lot of scrap value though.
aluminum?
Yeah. They'd steal that.
You're right.
Okay.
Okay.
I got more here, Jim. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Excuse me.
They are writing a letter to the Community Foundation of San Benito County for a grant. The foundation requires matching funds from 2 additional sources, and the Historic Preservation Committee wants to list the city as one of those matching fund sources. They also would like to list the San Juan Committee as one of the sources. The Historic Preservation is going for the matching funds. The money goes to promote both heritage tourism and weekend tourism of Silicon Valley people looking for a close but relaxing getaway weekend. It would really show the tourist sites and history that abounds here in San Juan Bautista. The technology would rise us up in our tech, and it'd be good because people are used to taking a picture of a QR code, and then the code would take the app on your phone to a description of the building, and it would go into as much detail as you wanted, or as much detail as they could write on that. So they're looking for approximately $10,000 on the matching grant from the city, and so they can have a matching grant of that amount of money from the Community Foundation. Okay? The rest of the committee, we discussed moving the dates to Monday evenings for the Strategic Planning Committee. That was because since the City Council's now getting our packets and agendas out earlier, Wednesday or Thursday, we'd have a better chance to cram it in here on the agenda beforehand. So hasn't been decided yet, but they're thinking about it.
Good.
Okay? And the Business and Tourism Subcommittee, Bev, reported that the San Juan Committee is having the ABC. Bud already talked about it, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but apparently they're going to Foster's Farmers Market out on the backside of town. They're going to the Mission, the Bakery, the Sada Inn, the State Park, Vertigo's, and they're going to end up at Hardin's. So that's a nice trip.
Gotcha. Outstanding. Thank you. Okay, any questions? No? Okay, everybody's sitting quietly. Public hearing items. A, consider an ordinance amending Article 5, tentative map, Section 10-02-540 appeals, subsection C of the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code. Matt, I think you're going to talk to us about that.
I did this in about 45 seconds for the Planning Commission at about 10:55 at night earlier this month. So I'll do it. I'll take a little more time here. In the fall, during the consideration of a recent appeal, an inconsistency was discovered between the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code and the Subdivision Map Act section of the California Government Code. In this instance, the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code called for a 15-day appeal period, and the Subdivision Map Act called for a 10-day appeal period. The California Government Code supersedes our local municipal code, so that caused a conflict. And so the city decided, after waiting a little bit, that we should put together all the information on this and hopefully clean up this inconsistencies so that this doesn't happen again in the future. I went ahead and put together the staff report and everything, and then Mayor Martirana pointed out that the way it was written, it only included subsection A and B of the Subdivision Map Act, which did not include subsection D, which covers any interested person, which is called out specifically in our municipal code. So since we are dealing with cleaning up inconsistencies, I had to do an amendment, a memo, and a revised ordinance here to basically include the change from 15 days to 10 days, and then also eliminate all instances of 66452.5 A and B. So I just dropped all the A's and B's so that it will include the entire government code section, including A, B, and D. As well as obviously C and E, but they're not as important in this instance. So,
okay. So what he's saying, we all got a copy of this memo when we came in this evening, and it basically as it was originally put in the packets, the ordinance that's in the packets doesn't necessarily cover you or me filing the appeal. That's a correction that we're seeing here. It allows for all of the different classes of persons that would appeal the map, the filing, whatever it is. So that we have consistency across the board. Anybody that's appealing, anybody that is allowed to appeal is now covered in this. Where the way it was originally presented in our packet, it only allowed, it was specific to the subdivider and tenants on the property, and so it would have remained ambiguous or contradictory. So
it's all 10. The proposal is to make it all 10 days.
Correct.
For everybody.
Correct. So that it is in compliance or it's consistent with the state law, and so we don't have any confusion over that in the future.
So let me ask a question to the city attorney here. Doesn't state law supersede local codes if there's an inconsistency?
Well, not necessarily. That is what we discussed this at length before. There's some language that the state says that the cities can adopt their own subdivision map acts. And I think the most prudent way is to be consistent with the state requirement. Otherwise you could possibly get sued because you're not consistent. But it doesn't say anywhere that the language has to be absolutely consistent. It says cities can adopt their own ordinances.
Okay. Any questions, any comments? Anyone from the public have any questions or comments? No? Okay, well.
This is a first reading and introduction.
So we don't do anything,
Yeah, just
file it.
No, it would have to be
someone has
an
to
introduction and read by title only.
Okay. We don't have a number for this one, though.
Not
No,
yet.
there's no number until we
never on the
adopt
first
it.
one.
Introduce
Okay, this introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista, amending Articles 5, tentative maps, Section 10-02-540, appeals, subsection C of the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code.
Second that.
Trish?
Councilmember Goff,
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman,
Yes.
Councilmember DeVries is absent, Vice Mayor West,
Yes.
Mayor Martirana.
Aye.
With 4 members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4-1-0-0.
Thank you.
4-0-0-1.
Thank you. 5B, consider revocation of design review permit DR 2013-33 for the brewery project. Adopt a resolution 2017 of revoking HRB-DR 2013-33, sequel categorical Article 19, Section 15-321A. And this item was continued from the January 17th meeting. Roger or Matt?
Not much
To
to say.
save his voice?
Yeah, I've talked with the attorney who represents Mr. Hippolito's wife, and there is a situation where she has not been compensated through a judge's orders, so the attorney is heading back to court to force the payment of 50% of the fair market value of that brewery building. And so that is being contested now in court. And
So
stuff
it's
like
not going for sale as we'd expected when we
Exactly.
talked about this, spoke about
Exactly.
this last?
that. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
The question that we have is you could proceed and revoke it because it has been long overdue and nothing is happening, and it appears as though Mr. Hippolito is continuing just to buy more time to resolve his intermarial problems and stuff like that. So and maybe the proper choice would be is to revoke it and bring him to the table.
Okay.
Does revoking it devalue the property?
Yes,
Does that, and the attorneys know that?
yes.
Anything, any questions or comments?
It's been long enough. If the property's devalued a little bit, maybe it'll make it easier for someone to buy it and open up a decent place. That's my theory. I'll stick with it till
And
I
it
prove
is,
wrong.
and it is an eyesore, and it's a detrimental to our city and by and
agree.
large. You know. And the weeds are getting to the point where there's no maintenance on it at all.
I agree. Mr. Serta called me at one point, and, you know, to have him not attend any meetings, not communicate at all, indicates to me that he's just not, you know, he doesn't have any regard for what process he's signed up for, so I don't feel that there's any reason to continue it.
Yeah, it'd be my recommendation to revoke the permit.
Right.
Now, I've already negated the building permit. Yeah. Maybe somebody, I've already negated the building permit, so no work can be done on it because I've
Right.
avoided that. And what it's issued tonight is revoking the site design review
Right.
of the thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So it'd have to start all over again at the planning commission
If-
level.
Right.
Anybody that buys it, or Mr. Hippolito comes forward, he'll have to start from scratch and go in front of the planning commission and get site design review before he can get the building permit.
Good. Okay. Any questions, comments from the public? Any speaker cards? Okay. Anything further?
I just hate to see any project move backwards.
I agree.
But I understand what we can do, so.
Apparently, the planning commission
As recommended.
recommended to us to
Yeah.
revoke it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would make a motion, a resolution of the city council of the city of San Juan Bautista approving the
Revocation.
revocation of HRBR 2013-33 permit pursuant to San Juan Municipal Code Section 11-17-050 parenthesis A.
Second. What's the number on that?
09. Councilmember Bach?
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman is absent. Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana?
Aye.
With 4 members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4001.
Thank you.
You wanted me to do that because I couldn't
Pronounce it, I couldn't either, so I...
Okay. Monterey Bay Community Power. We were asking for an update, I think a progress report, and there were some questions about our financial liability, either here or down the road.
Yeah.
And then we have to consider approving an ordinance authorizing the implementation of a community choice aggregation program, which would be a second reading.
And as you recall, in the dissertations of the various groups, they've created 11 groups. And San Benito County got its own individual designation, and their share will be a full $300,000, 310 or whatever it is. Our group would be 11, and that's the 2 cities of San Benito County will share in that seat. And that seat is divided between the city of Hollister and the city of San Juan Bautista. I've approached the city in sharing that seat with a side agreement based on their budget and based on their population, and it came out to 95.5%, 95 for the city of Hollister, 5% for San Juan. And as another alternate, I gave another option of a 90% to city of Hollister, 10% for San Juan Bautista. Mm-hmm. And that was about $286,000 and $30,000 split. And then the final option would be is to go 50-50, which we would have an equal share in the seat and shared with the city of Hollister on a 50-50 basis, and our share would be $159,000 letter of credit. Okay, the letter of credit is submitted to the bank that's going to upfront the startup funds for this group, and then once it gets going, the letter of credit, depending on the sign-up and the revenues that are generated from the participants, then that letter of credit will dissolve and go away, and then it'll be funded internally with the revenues from that joint powers agreement. So
okay.
That's kind of where we're at. In the dialogue with the city of Hollister, we did not get any agreement to options A or B. And so we're left with option C, which would be splitting it on a 50-50 basis. The recommendation from the joint powers agreement was the minimum term of a seat should be 2 years, because the first year is getting acclimated to and up to speed with the nomenclature and the acronyms and the working process, and then do a 2-year period, and then the second city would take over, and then they would do a 2-year period and alternate. So that's kind of where it's at, and so if we wanted to proceed, our letter of credit would be $159,000, and we'd have an equal share of 50-50 representation on seat 11 at the board. They also sent out a newsletter here, and they're selecting several dates of when the first meeting will be developed from the Joint Powers Agreement, where they will be attending the participants of the seat and probably electing a chairman and a vice chairman and getting all of the necessary organization in place so that it can start to develop their criteria.
Okay.
And that will occur probably within the next 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, yeah.
Okay. And we have
Brennan Jensen.
Yeah.
Hello, thank you, Chris.
And you can answer questions for us, I take it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've been before you before, and I appreciate the opportunity again, so I'm happy to answer any clarifying questions you have.
Okay. Why don't we see what we're,
One question I have is,
Yes, sir.
how much the letter, $159,000 letter of credit cost us?
Nothing, no, it would be just getting a letter from our bank that, in their format, to transfer it over to their bank and stuff like that. And it would be substantially setting up a letter of credit for that. We wouldn't have to expend any fund, it's just a letter of credit that goes forward. And she can more explain it, is the fact there. Once the organization gets going and you start signing up people and everything, then that will dissolve that letter of credit so that the obligation would be there and you'd be a full-fledged partner in that. Go ahead.
And this is because since it's a brand new JPA, you don't have any credit history. And so in order to get that startup capital just to get the program established and moving, it's estimated at about $3 million to cover the 21 county jurisdiction, and it's divided evenly among the 11 seats at the table, which for your seat that is shared with Hollister would be a 50-50, would be up to that $159,000 credit amount. $0 out of your general fund. This is just in the event that something doesn't go as planned, then there are those dollars there. Now, one piece that's helpful to know is in the experience with all of the CCAs that have been established, there's been no default to date. We would not anticipate any default, and in fact, the payback period is estimated to be under 2 years, as early as 6 months. So it's really quite a low risk item.
that makes sense?
No, I knew I've had to pay for a letter of credit before. I just didn't realize that Union Bank would give you one for free.
Well, it's like anything is that we have a substantial amount of money sitting in there, and that was part of the negotiations,
Yeah, you probably have more in the savings than I can.
Yeah, you're just not a big enough customer for them. And so I'm not aware of any of the other CCAs being quite this many jurisdictions.
That is true. So to date, all of the existing CCEs have either been single jurisdiction or generally done at a county level, which includes the county and all of its incorporated cities therein.
Okay.
This would be the very first multi-county CCE, although we do have quite a history of collaborating at the tri-county level here in the Monterey Bay area, so it's fitting for our region.
And and we've heard multiple times about how quickly they've been put on a positive footing in Marin County and some of the other jurisdictions. That's all fine. What's the status of the 21 jurisdictions committing to it at this point to date? Where are we on the 20? Is everybody in right now? Are we the last? Are we early on?
You're in the middle. So
Okay.
You were one of the early folks to pass your first resolution, and this is done in two different parts.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, 17 of the 21 jurisdictions have passed at least the first stage, the adoption of the resolution and the first reading. And all 21 jurisdictions have at least agendized the item. So, in fact, we have several items that are looking at either first or second readings today. So 17 of the 21 are already in the tent.
And Monterey County specifically, what's the status there?
Monterey County is now a full member. They passed their second reading this morning.
They did.
Yes.
So I'd heard there was some maneuvering around that they had been reluctant, and that they then found out that PG&E had raised their rates by 10% or were planning to raise their rates, and suddenly got excited about it. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard.
I think in general across the board, all 21 jurisdictions have definitely seen the very many benefits of this program. One of the pieces where there was some additional consideration for some jurisdictions like Monterey County was the governance structure. So the governance structure has been designed to try to kind of level the playing field across the 3 counties. It provides a stronger voice for smaller jurisdictions like yours. And some of the larger jurisdictions were hoping for, some additional sort of weighted voting, and so that was part of what was holding it up. At this point, none of that is moving forward. We are holding with the 11-member board, as you've seen previously, and has been presented to you previously, and they have gone ahead and passed it through the second reading. So.
And so this seat 11 that we would be sharing potentially with the city of Hollister, who gets the seat first? How long do they have the seat? How is that decided?
Sure. So the term is 2 years, and that's included within the JPA agreement. In terms of who gets the seat, that's actually sort of up to you and your normal process. So generally, there's already established processes by which cities and counties sort of elect representatives to various JPAs or other committees in which there are shared representation. So some folks have flipped a coin. Other folks have a committee that looks at these things and makes a recommendation. Some folks have gone in and said, we're a jurisdiction who's been very strongly at the table since the earliest days, and so we feel like we'd like to take the very first presence. And so those are some different tactics that you can utilize, but it's up to you to negotiate that with your other jurisdictions.
And if we adopt it before Hollister, we have a slight edge on saying, hey.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you that Hollister has already passed both readings.
Okay. Yeah.
And they were actually the very first of 21 to pass their first reading.
So we don't...
That's because they did their first and second reading at the same time. They were actually the last to do their first reading and the first to do their second reading, because they did it at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
And is there a process, she's alluding to a process that exists or may exist. I'm not aware of anything for making a choice like this.
Well, I think it's just a matter of sitting down with the city of Hollister and find out who goes first. Right, yeah. We've been fairly active from the start. Hollister hasn't attended a lot of the meetings. No. And I think the last referend was the one that kind of surfaced, yeah.
Okay, so there isn't any established process then necessarily. It would be a negotiation with them over who takes the seat. Okay. Okay. Okay.
I feel very comfortable that this organization is going to be very successful in reading and a lot of the background on the existing ones there. I think it's a very positive step in the right direction, and it's a wave of renewable energy in the future. We see it more and more.
Yeah, I have gone to a number of the meetings, and I think the program is wonderful. I really support it. I have a problem. We talk about low risk. When this first came to this council, our letter of credit was $8,000. $8,000. Now we're at $160,000. And as a percentage to the voters in this city, that is a tremendous risk. While overall it's low, and it has a good record. It hasn't happened. But if you're sitting in this seat and you want me to take a risk for that, and I don't know what it would, if you divide
5% of the total.
Yeah, but if you divide 159,000 by what, 1900 people, what is that per, I tried to do it with my calculator, I can't do any of that stuff. How much is that a person? Huh?
$100 a person.
$100 a person?
130. Yeah.
130. I just think that it's a disproportional burden on the taxpayers of San Juan Bautista. I think the program's wonderful. I would really like to know what is, if we don't go now, and we buy in later, what does that cost?
Well, to some degree, it's a little bit unknown what that
Yeah.
cost would be later on. Now, so there would be an on-ramping process for folks who decide that they want to hold off and join at a later date.
There would be a penalty, I
And
understand.
there would be a cost associated with that. I can tell you that in other areas where they've provided that kind of an option, it's ranged anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000 per jurisdiction who's come on at a later date. We can't necessarily quantify that at this particular stage, but there would be a cost. The other piece of that is that by not being at the table early on, this is when many of those policy recommendations that have been made by the Program Development Advisory Committee will be actually reviewed and incorporated, and so it's your opportunity to have influence over that process.
And I understand all of that. All I say is that there's, 50,000 people in Hollister and 2,000 here? And we're paying the same
36
rate?
and everything. Hollister's per population is about 44, and ours would be about 130.
Yeah. As it seems like, while it's low risk and it's highly valuable, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I made the motion the first time about it, and I voted for it. I think it's a great idea. I'm just concerned about the risk we put our taxpayers in. We're just not that big. And for us to put the same dollar risk as Hollister and divide it by population makes me uncomfortable. And I would hate to not be part of it because I've been to the meetings a lot. I agree with the whole thing. It just...
So one thing about the line of credit, and as you know, you were part of many of those conversations, and that was something that did come up when that shift happened, because it did start off as a population-based model, and then at some point there was a recommendation by one of the jurisdictions to change to something that was more closely tied to the votes, so that sort of the line of credit was somewhat proportional to the voice at the table. So San Juan Bautista in particular was consulted during that discussion on whether or not that was going to be a disproportional burden. And the representatives that were there at the time from San Juan Bautista felt that that was acceptable. There also was the county of San Benito and Hollister were there and had indicated that they would be willing to provide some assistance.
I was at that meeting. I was the one that agreed to it. I was the one that thought the city of Hollister would do a more proportional representation of it. And they said that, and they initially said yes. And we were all like, oh, well, with that. It's just my only qualm is to go from $8,000 to $160,000 of risk. It's low risk. It's not a better problem than the others. We've got a lot of good players there. I'm just a little uncomfortable.
Sure. So,
And I've had a conversation with Ray, and he said that if it was a problem,
it's Ray Espinoza from the county.
From the county CAO, is to bring it to him, and he would approach the Board of Supervisors to help us out.
So we could table this and have that conversation with Mr. Espinoza. We could do that. Is there any downside to that in terms of what's our timetable for this implementation or vote?
At this point, folks are considering basically this month. We may have 1 or 2 second readings that are pushing into April, but they are trying to have the first meeting of the policy committee in April to begin some of these conversations, and some of the major decisions cannot start until 30 days after the second readings are effective. So it does start to compress in terms of being able to move things forward so that we can launch on time in spring. One consideration in terms of the line of credit is that what you're authorizing is your sort of up to amount. So some jurisdictions have actually specified that within their the language of their resolution. So you're, in this case, potentially approving up to that 50% threshold of 159. it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what your actual
I understand.
line of credit is going to be, because the bank ultimately who is providing this $3 million loan is going to set the terms, and they may request more to come from, for instance, the larger jurisdictions. So there still could be some shift in what you're actually committed to. It wouldn't go above that 1/11th portion. That's basically what everyone has agreed to, that's the maximum.
Okay. John, did you have?
Yeah, I have a slightly different view on this. I also have been to a large number of meetings, mostly at over in San Benito with my good friend David Herboy and several people from your organization. And so I'm fully committed to this. I'd like to remind the council and everyone else in the audience that 4 or 5 years ago, this city adopted a green city ordinance, and we would want to be a model green city. And so this is a very, very, very low risk operation, right? I'm going to tell you, one lawsuit against the city by anything happening is going to far exceed this small amount. And so I'm, you know, and since we do not have to pay out money, we only have to promise a letter of credit. I'm fully in favor of it. I do think that Hollister, you know, I am basically angling for us to be the lead, because Hollister's not a green city. The people, even Ray Friend, who I know and talked to, is not really completely on board. He's flip-flopped several times. You know, and the Hollister City Council's, well, it's described by Benito Link as completely dysfunctional. So I don't know if that's appropriate or not. Benito Link might be a little harsh.
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably. Okay. But I just think we should take the lead on it. We have a lot to gain. We have people who own solar panels who are restricted in the amount of money they receive from agencies, mainly PG&E, who would suddenly be free of that, and suddenly they would be power providers and they'd have a small source of income. Now those people who have panels on the roof don't have that, and you will not have that with PG&E, and yet you will have that with this JPA. So, and the city and the county can do projects with private organizations, possibly, you know, generate power. You know, we have, unlike some other cities like Santa Cruz or Capitola, we have large areas, well, not San Juan Bautista, but at least San Benito County has large areas of land where solar panels can go nicely, you know. So I'm fully in favor of it.
Okay. Tony, any questions, comments?
One thing, I get a little smirk on my face every time PG&E raises their rates, because I'm locked in. Okay, I got my panels up there. I went to Solar City, all right, and I got a rate lock for 20 years out. So the PG&E bill runs about $4.95 a month. And Solar City is anywhere from $50 to $80, depending on how much it generates, or I use it. So I see this program, and I don't see, I'm a little, like you, a little leery about this line of credit, but the history behind it, the other counties that have done it,
Yep.
it's worked. The only thing I could see going wrong is if somebody got their hands on that $3 million and moved to Brazil, you know, but and
That's why John wants to get into it.
I do have friends in Brazil.
Sure. We're going to keep an eye on you and ask them. But I'm in favor. I really am.
All right, let me ask you, you don't think the risk then is excessive?
I'm sorry?
You don't think there's too much risk? I mean, I'm going to defer to you on this one.
No, I'm somewhat uncomfortable with it, but the real thing is, what I'm uncomfortable with is that Hollister won't even negotiate.
Yeah.
All right. But after being here since 1960, I've realized that we're like an alien planet out here as far as Hollister's concerned. They never negotiate with us.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
So, hey, go for it. I mean, what do we got to lose? $159,000.
Okay.
Okay.
You are more conservative than I, and if you're not comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it.
Any questions or comments from the public? Do you have any speaker cards? David, yes, sir.
Yeah, David Dejers for 1026 First Street. I'm in favor of this. We've got solar panels and it's working beautiful. I'd like to see more of this happening for the rest of the year. We are a green city. Let's do it. We got to put the stake in the ground and make it happen. I'm with John. I'm with these people here too as well. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Bob Wade, speaker card, 160 Lang. I think if we're getting 50% of voice on the panel, I think that's worth the risk, because you're not going to put out any money, so you're getting voice. I'd say tell Hollister that you'll take $300 risk and you get to see all to
ourselves.
If Hollister doesn't want to participate.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we do.
Okay. Anything further? Are we ready? Do we have a motion, gentlemen?
Okay.
Okay.
You want to start?
Sure.
Okay.
Right here. I move that we adopt an ordinance of the City Council of San Juan Bautista authorizing implementation of a community choice aggregation program.
The number, Trish, is it 10?
3, 2007-3. This is an ordinance, so
Ordinance, right.
Okay.
different numbers.
And Tony seconded. Okay.
Councilmember Box?
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVries is absent. Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana?
Aye.
The 4 members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4001.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
That was
Moving
a
right
second
along.
reading, right?
That's,
Yep.
it's done, it's a done deal.
If you guys are happy, I'm happy.
Thank you,
If
Jim.
Tony's happy, I'm happy.
I don't know whether you trust me, you won't get in your bench riding.
Okay, action items. 6A, consider options for the regulation and taxing of recreational marijuana sales and cultivation. And here I thought this was going to be a fast meeting.
Okay, I'm going to make it fast, because although I have a lot of history in there for your benefit,
Marijuana cultivation?
I am going to cut through all this history and to start from the voters adopting the Prop 64 Adult Use of Marijuana Act in November. And so the very next day, it became legal to use recreational marijuana and to grow 6 plants. And I just want to start out in this introduction by saying that San Juan Bautista is not behind the curve in adopting an ordinance at this point, because despite the fact that this passed in November of last year, the state isn't going to start a regulatory process and start issuing licenses until approximately January of next year. So tonight is just a introduction to this issue, and I'm seeking some direction as to where you would like staff to go on some of the possibilities that are open to the city. So let me first explain the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, the essential provisions. It allows an individual to cultivate up to 6 marijuana plants on their property. So that's legal right now, and it's legal for a person to do it in an enclosed area within their house, in a greenhouse, in an enclosed area, not necessarily in an open area.
So, quick question. So if there's 2 people living, does that make it 12?
No.
So it's by house. So if you have a house and a granite unit, then you could have potentially 12 plants on the
But if
property.
you just have 2 people in a single family dwelling, it is
Right,
6.
6 for a single family dwelling. So there's an opportunity. I attached an ordinance from the city of Folsom, and the reason that I attached it is that they have jumped in already and they are regulating cultivation. And the ALMA allows you, the Prop 64 allows you to regulate cultivation if you want to. And the reason I say if you want to, because if you took a gander at the Folsom Act that's there, it's pretty comprehensive, and code enforcement would have to go out and enforce that. And in my personal opinion, I think it's difficult for code enforcement to be looking over the walls or trying to enforce exactly where, or if it smells, or unless it's complaint driven, which we can use our nuisance ordinance for. I think it probably is best not to try to regulate the cultivation of those 6 plants. Now, you can also allow cultivation on a greater scale, which is something that we can look at if that's something you're interested in the city. I feel that you don't have enough space here in the city to have larger levels of growth by commercial operations. But if it's something you want to look at, we can look at that.
May I ask, can I interrupt you for a
Sure.
moment? So I'm a little confused. You're not suggesting that we regulate the personal use or the personal growth, but the state law doesn't allow for it to be. I can't plant the plants in my front yard currently, correct?
Right.
And that would not be affected by what you're saying. What you're not suggesting is that we put even more regulation in place on those 6 plants?
Right, that's one of the things I'm suggesting, but also,
Okay.
some jurisdictions are allowing commercial cultivation.
I understand.
They're allowing
commercial completely separate.
Right.
Just so under the current law, it still needs to be secured. It needs to be grown in a secured location, which is
Correct.
defined in that law.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to be very
Correct.
clear on that.
So
Which is inside the greenhouse or some other building.
it
Basically
can be
locked.
in a enclosed area, is
Right.
my understanding, outside, but it has to be completely enclosed.
And not visible.
Patio suffice? I'm just curious.
I don't know at this point. I mean, the state hasn't really gone in and started regulating this, so it says a completely enclosed, secured residential accessory, fully enclosed area. So secured, I guess if your patio was secured and locked and not
Well, and
visible.
it
to
also
the
says
public.
not visible from
Right.
a public thoroughfare, basically.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So the next provision of ALMA that's of interest is that it allows an individual to possess up to 28.5 grams of cannabis plant material or 8 grams of concentrate. And so for those of you that don't know much about the marijuana industry, it isn't really, you don't just have the option of smoking marijuana these days and having to carry a amount of dried marijuana plant. There are a lot of options for edibles, oils. They call it honey oil, where it's a reduced concentrate of the chemicals in the marijuana. So that 8 grams of concentrate could be in edibles. It could be in a dropper form. It could be in a inhaler type device. So that is completely lawful to do now. And the city cannot prohibit.
Pardon me?
It's
a gram
8
is
grams of concentrate.
Well, and a
And I'd
gram is
say-
like a paper clip, isn't it?
Well,
it's not a lot.
It's kind of arbitrary because there are various strengths of the concentrate, so it really is kind of an arbitrary number because people can just concentrate something down farther to make it 8 grams. So as a city, you cannot prohibit this recreational marijuana use. That's in the ALMA. But there are certain statewide restrictions which are currently in place. And those, of course, would apply to the use of marijuana in the city. You can't ingest or smoke in a public place. You can't smoke anywhere where smoking is prohibited. You can't smoke marijuana within 1,000 feet of a school, daycare center, or youth center. And you can't smoke or ingest marijuana while you're operating a motor vehicle, boat, vessel, aircraft, or any other vehicle used for transportation. And likewise, you cannot be the passenger in doing it in such a vehicle. So those are the rules right now for use of recreational marijuana. I've often been asked, well, what happens if the highway patrol stops me, or if we have perhaps an employee at work and we're worried, is that person impaired by marijuana? And there are no tests that are currently in place where you can actually determine that a person is not able to work or drive their vehicle. And so part of the ALMA is going to include funds that are going to go to funding some of the universities to develop tests with employees. All we can do if we test them is determine if they've used marijuana within 30 days, which doesn't tell us if they're able to perform their work or not. So the instructions we're giving the employers are to go ahead and make findings if they feel an employee cannot drive a vehicle, because the Department of Transportation rules are still in place, and the employer needs to make findings that the person has red eyes, their cognitive functions are off. I'm suggesting taking a video interview, etc., if they're going to take an employment action. And the police are doing the same thing at this point. So so that's kind of a summary of the ALMA provisions, and I'll stop there because it's actually it's quite a lengthy law, and it actually has I believe there's 18 different types of commercial activities that are discussed in ALMA, with some interesting things, almost like breweries where you can have grow on site and then have tasting on site. Like micro brews, I guess, micro breweries or something. There's 18 different commercial cannabis licenses. So that's a complication if you go and you decide you want to allow some type of use in your city. Then we'll have to look at those 18 uses and determine what you want. So let me move on. If there's no questions about ALMA itself, let me move on to what you can do. So at this point, I have your ordinance. It's on the second page of the staff report, and you disallow medical marijuana dispensaries, which includes any marijuana cultivation or marijuana distribution. So that's disallowed as a medical marijuana facility. You're going to have to take some step in the future to address whether you're going to allow any cultivation and whether you're going to allow any recreational marijuana commercial uses. So the ALMA allows you to completely ban commercial marijuana regulations, commercial marijuana use, and completely to ban cultivation. So at this point, without taking any stand on what you would like to do, I think it would be wise to put a ban into place, because at the current time, you can revisit it a year or two down the road, and a lot of the larger cities are taking this on right now to actually allow commercial institutions in their cities. And it'd be nice if a smaller city with maybe a little more money to invest in drafting a ordinance would come forward with an ordinance. I know the city of San Diego has come forward now, and they're allowing commercial marijuana use once the state starts allowing it. Commercial marijuana retail facilities. But it's a very large ordinance, and so I don't think you would want something that complicated in your city. So it would be nice just to be able to take the time and let everyone else see how it works with the state and with the state regulatory system, and then look at it again. in the near future. So that would be my recommendation. But you could also put into place a marijuana regulatory ordinance. This could include locational restrictions. It could be subject to, permits could be subject to annual review, so they'd be more like licenses, not exactly use permits. You can put in place various safety operating regulations. A lot have open front windows, regular police checks, video cameras, licensing, fingerprinting, requirement that a manager, be available at all times, security guards, those kind of things. Locational restrictions can include you can locate it only in certain zones, like only in your commercial district. You can put in place a cap on the number of facilities you're going to allow in the city, either as a medicinal or a recreational, retail, or as both. So you can actually, I'd call it a kind of beauty contest. You can see who's going to put the nicest facility. The city council can weigh the various applications and determine which one would be the nicest facility if that's what you wanted to do. You cannot, under the ALMA, prohibit recreational marijuana distribution and transportation through your city. So if they're going to Hollister or if they're going to Salinas, you can't tell them they can't, be in San Benito County here and cross your city lines. But you can prohibit delivery of marijuana to locations within the city. And again, that's, you can say that in fact, but it's going on right now. I mean, you can go to the back of any, local rag and see where people will deliver, and it's happening. And it's difficult for anybody, the police or code enforcement, to determine that a vehicle passing through the city is delivering a package to a resident. So it's not legal in your city right now, but it's happening. To go back to the options that I want to look at tonight and get some direction on, the first of them is the cultivation regulation. Whether you want to do something like the city of Folsom and regulate. The second one is whether you want me to bring back a ban. As I mentioned, that would be the most prudent thing until the state actually comes forward with all these agencies and tells us how they're going to regulate and what they're going to do. Your third option is whether you want to allow any dispensaries and whether you want to get to work on that and have more information on how that would work. And if you did want to, what I didn't mention is the state is going to follow whatever rules are in place for San Juan Bautista. So before the end of the year, we need to lodge with the state bureau that's doing this regulating. We need to lodge what we do in San Juan. So if they get an application for a business in San Juan, they're going to look, and if they see a ban, they're going to say, no. It's not up to us, it's going to be up to the state. If they see that there's some regulation in place and we're only going to allow one, they're going to see which one we want, and they're going to allow that person to apply and no one else. So the state will enforce this regulation on our behalf. You can charge a fee for the application process. You can charge a fee for the inspections, which leads me to my final thing that I want to discuss with you, is that a lot of the cities that allow a facility within their city, they put in place a excise tax. And that has to be done unless we have some extraordinary circumstances we can prove. It has to be done in a regular election, which means an election where a council seat is up. So the next election that will not be November this year, it won't be till November of next year. So that it wouldn't be till November next year that we could put a tax in place. And the state is taxing these businesses heavily, but there are cities that are going from 6 to 15% of sales as an excise tax on these businesses. And so they are raising significant amounts of money, taxing these facilities. But again, we wouldn't be able to do that until November of next year. So at this point, a complete ban to the city would have really the least fiscal impact. It would just be a code enforcement issue. But if you did choose to put some facilities into place, allow them, then there will be costs to the city of regulating, of the application process, of code enforcement, of inspections, et cetera, but which could be offset with taxes and fees on these businesses. So if you can really just go through now and maybe discuss the options available, cultivation ban, allowing, and tax, to give me some direction as to where you would like me to come back with, what type of ordinance you would like me to come back with.
I'd like to ask, what is the county of San Benito doing? I don't, do we have any idea?
I don't know at this point. I haven't heard that they're doing anything at this point. So I can look at that further, but I don't know.
I know of 2 locations where there's commercial grows. Now whether they get permits or whatever, I don't know. But then there's the one out on 25.
Purple, whatever.
Yeah.
And I have no idea if he's legal or what. He's been doing it for years. And, but my idea here is that I don't think we should, at this point in time, allow any commercial facility to sell marijuana in the town. One of the things, if you look at 1,000 feet from a school or daycare center, couldn't do anything downtown.
Yeah.
They couldn't open up a store at the Windmill Market or I don't know, 1,000 foot.
So that's actually for the smoking for recreational
Right.
use. So, I mean, if somebody bought in Santa Cruz and they were sitting here, it'd be if the police came to enforce, it'd be 1,000 feet from the school.
Support banning. We already banned medical. And I would support banning commercial sales for a while and let, like you said, let Hollister and Santa Cruz and whoever sort it out, see how it's working.
Deborah, what is our time frame? We have about...
So we have, roughly to the end of the year
End of the year.
to enact a ban. And you've seen some jurisdictions have already done it, but they just wanted to send a clear message that don't set up a facility here. Don't go buy, a thrift shop on, Main Street and think you're going to turn it into some lucrative business because you're not. So
Just like those people here, that was a medical one.
Yes.
That they were going to be up above Daisy's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got all the school kids at the ice cream shop. Come on, that was...
well,
So can we regulate it by zoning also? It sounded like that was a big...
you can put it in only one area. Like you can put it in well, I don't know if you have an industrial area here, but you can put it,
Across
just...
the freeway. Yeah.
Right, you can put it... Right, okay.
Well-
So you can just put it in the industrial area if you feel like it might have a negative impact on downtown
Or we could create a
it's kinda
zoning.
close to
Yeah.
neighborhoods, you can create a zone, right?
Class
So,
for it.
right.
I'm in favor of banning it for a short period of time, but we have 2 states that have kind of set a trailblazing path. That would be Colorado and Washington. And I believe that both the states and local governments have made an awful lot of money off of it, and we're always crying poor, and so I don't want to turn down free money, or not free money, but you know what I mean.
Revenue sources.
So let me
I
just
think-
comment on that, because there was something I forgot to say that, I've asked, some of the people that come to meetings that want to set up medical marijuana facilities, and they're really pushing now to to come in and, as a medical marijuana facility. And I asked them what happened in Colorado now when you had medical marijuana, then you had recreational marijuana. It seems to me like, do the facilities choose between one or the other, and or do they do both out of one location? And they said that they usually do both out of one location. But an interesting thing about the AMA is that they exempted medical marijuana from sales tax. So the sales tax is only on the recreational marijuana. So if you were to put only a medical marijuana facility in your town, you wouldn't get any sales tax from it.
So we could exempt them too.
So
I want that money.
when we passed the current ban,
that
Yeah,
and see what impacts it's going to have on certain districts. And you came up with a good point. There's two states, Colorado and Washington, doing there. We should investigate to see the derivative of a lot of revenue coming in, but what is it costing in terms of police, law enforcement,
it's
social services? Those are the things that would affect a community.
Yeah, I mean, we have a number of alcohol outlets. I'm not sure how different it is, frankly, from that. So, but I think that we need to put something on the books so that we don't get preempted by activities by the state starts commencing. Or somebody else. So I think we should. That would be my suggestion.
Well, even though I'm only actually halfway in favor of it, I do think that we should ban it on 3rd Street and the Windmill Market and all that, and it should just be in an industrial commercial area, basically on the other side of the freeway, and make them build a new building and make them put up their own security guards and make them police themselves, basically. That would be and yet but the only reason I would even consider that would be another source of income.
Sure. Okay. Any questions or comments from the public?
Bob Quaid, 160 Lang Street. I think you guys are forgetting that the citizens of California voted to allow recreational use. And so, the citizens have voted, and so by you banning it, you're denying citizens locally to buy it locally. People are going to have to travel out of town, spend their tax dollars in some other jurisdiction, when it's going to be legal to use in California. So why not sell it here? And I'm not sure, 1,000 feet from a school or preschool, 3rd Street is a location. You got an empty bank building there with a vault that would be a prime location, I think, to have a medical or a recreational dispensary, and we can collect tax dollars. And the voters passed it, and so we're not. I'm not sure why we want to ban it. We should embrace it. And you talked that we don't have commercial areas for growing. I think you have that industrial zone out there. I think we should, maybe zone some of that for growing and get some income from it, because it's going to happen all around us. It's going to be smoked here. I don't know, you guys, by banning, you think it's not going to be smoked or ingested. It's going to be done.
There's no ban on personal use of marijuana.
I know, but you're just like with the medical, your medical marijuana ordinance, you force people to go out of town to get their prescriptions.
I go to Hollister to get my heart medicine. I can't buy it in town.
Well, and is that a hardship for you?
No, I go there to get my...
Well, come on. Would if they sold your heart medication in San Juan, wouldn't you buy it here locally?
My concern, and we banned it before, we cannot even enforce parking regulations in this town. We can't do it.
Well, but if you put in place that they have to have a security guard present and you put regulations on it, then that controls it.
We have to hire another Matt to do that. Somebody has to go around and follow up on that.
Well, what's Nick doing? You got the person already.
Bob,
we found his job.
Okay, we're going to rein this in a little bit. Your point's well taken. I think it's a very good point that the population voted for it. I think that we're looking for we're concerned about having the local, about us locally not being able to be in charge of what happens. So we're looking for a short-term, make sure we don't get preempted. Bob, this is my time. We're looking for an ability to control it. Yeah. And then we can, so that we can study it. Because I don't disagree with you. I think that I don't have a problem with it at all. But I want to make sure we have time to take input from the local community and then craft something that is workable for the whole community. So
Well, we got one on the plus side over there, right?
I have a suggestion. We'll put a ban in for 2 years, and then Bob, you can run for city council.
Yeah.
Okay.
You may force me to do it.
Okay.
No, everybody it's like down here talking about, oh, it's wonderful to get all this money. I don't think the people in Colorado, Washington, or Oregon are really happy with what the hell's going on. There's no control over it, and you're starting people out at a younger age to be intoxicated, and that's all marijuana
I was
is.
reading a report on their welfare
I'm not really happy
list
with
in
this.
Colorado
I'm
that just
not a
swelled
big
up.
marijuana user. What's the difference with alcohol? I'm
I'm not a big alcohol user
The
either.
people have spoken, the people have spoken.
We got it.
Yeah.
Ma'am, did you have a
Oh, yeah.
comment?
Hi, good evening. I'm Jackie Morse Lopez from Mission Street. Good evening. And I just wanted to kind of share with Ms. Mall that there is, with AMA, I mean, I'm like Bob and like you probably, the voters have voted for Prop 64 to be legal. But I think that there is a county, just interesting enough, Tuolumne County, just their first county supervisors meeting in January, proposed a temporary ban as to what she was speaking about, and I think it would behoove our city to maybe consider that. I mean, I also think that we have to think of creative ways to bring in money, like John said, and I think I'm with Bob. I grew up in the 70s. Bob and I were classmates. But anyway, maybe they can zone it.
Sure.
Where the old cement plant was, maybe it can be a city co-op run thing where the citizens can own it, regulate it, have some share in it, But I think right now, honestly, we need to put some kind of ban on it before people come here and, the wrong kind of element can get behind it and just destroy a little town. At one time, my parents grew up here. They said at one time there were 13 or 14 bars up and down Main Street. Can you imagine a dozen marijuana dispensaries up and down Main Street? Would not be good. So anyway, I think that's really prudent to take that approach.
Okay, no,
Thank you.
Hot City.
Okay.
And that goes.
Dave, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I'm in favor of the ban too, but I got a question. Does an old milking barn count as a part of a residence area? Because I can probably put in 24 plants the way things are going. But anyway, no, I think we need to regulate this properly and put a ban in place to see where we need to go. And I think researching it where we're going with different states and things like that, how well they're doing or how bad they're doing before we even decide to go forward with this.
Thank you.
That's why I wanted to find out what the county was doing.
Sure.
I don't want to be overwhelmed by the county or follow the county too far, or nor do I want to be ahead of it either.
Yeah. My sense of it is we don't need to take action quickly on this, and that we rather than tying up staff time on creating an ordinance, maybe we should just table this for a future. I mean, this doesn't seem like, if in fact we've created a ban, we're probably not talking about a lot of time to create the ordinance.
That's right. I mean, I could bring a ban back to you at the next meeting, and it would take 2 readings.
Okay.
And that way you'd
So we
have
just need to
something
stay
in
ahead of
place,
that,
and then what you could do is direct staff to come back, like say in a year, and bring back some models from other cities and reports of how that's going and what problems they've had or not had, and what kind of revenue they're making.
Okay. Jim?
And we want to declare, this is not a ban on personal use.
Understood.
That's not our bailiwick. This is a ban on commercial marijuana activities in the town.
Well, I think that's what we are
Yeah, I just
describing,
think
right?
that gets lost.
Well, but it is also, that we have the ability to allow more than the 6 plants for personal use, do we not?
No.
Or is that a strict limitation?
No, that's it.
Okay,
That's,
sorry.
And it's
that's
going,
legal
1/6 is
permit.
commercial, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
that's for recreational, then they have a slightly different for medicinal. I believe there's
Right.
up to 12 plants or so.
Okay. Okay, any other comments, questions, gentlemen? Do we,
I think there's direction.
Shouldn't you
You
change your
took your time.
medicinal grow restriction now since people are going to be able to grow recreational?
pardon me?
Shouldn't you can't you, right now you have a ban on growing medicinal marijuana.
We do.
Which is-
Yeah, we have
now-
cultivation,
Commercial.
we have cultivation. No, wait, it says cultivation.
Sales of medicinal.
We actually have a cultivation
Yeah.
ban as well.
Well,
We
it's
ban
already-
everything.
But again, that's commercial.
Right, I'll fix,
So there's a conflict now.
I'll fix both of those. That's, kind of the point of this is that we can't rest on what we have now. We have to
Yeah.
fix what's there. And so that's what we'll do is we'll fix
So
fix
it
what's
would be a
there.
repeal of the current and then, or replacing the current.
Right,
With
correct.
something that was a,
More
think we have
general definition, right?
okay.
Add to the one we already did.
Well, however,
I'm
she,
still curious as to how these cities and states collect their tax money, being as it's still federally illegal. It's still class 1 liquor.
Delray Oaks is getting a new fire truck out of their dispensary.
We must be paying cash for it, that is all I can say.
I have no idea, but
In
all
AMA, it's,
that's what they told me.
it's very complicated in AMA where they actually, if you're a commercial grower, they actually have to register each plant you have and they're going to somehow tag each plant and figure out, so they can tax it correctly.
Credit unions instead of banks, because they're not as federally regulated, and so they're using credit unions as their banking source, and
There we go.
they're working around it.
Okay. So do we have a consensus direction
I
for
think so.
the city attorney?
I think so.
Okay.
John?
Yes. Bring
You
it back
think-
later.
Well, do you want, working on a ban and unifying the current regulation with the
I'd like to
new?
put sunset into the ban, so that we have to revisit it in a year and a half.
Okay. Okay. Tony?
I'd like to make it 2 years so Bob can get on it.
Yeah.
Pass it to the next guy. Pass the buck. Well, a year and a half would pass the buck.
That's right. I did it.
Pass the buck.
That's very good, John, very good. You guys can take care of it.
Jim?
I'd like to I don't want to put a sunset because it'll get passed, we won't pay attention, it'll slip through the cracks, and somebody will come in and do something, and then we won't be able to get them out. So I think we make a ban, and then we look at it next year.
I agree with Jim. I'm not a fan of the sunset. Are you guys okay with that? John, is that all right?
Yeah, well, I conceded on the other one.
Okay, does that work for you, Deborah? Is
Yes,
that-
absolutely, that's
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, so we are through with number 6A. Anybody else ready for a
Over
personal
50 break, yes.
It's the over 50 break. We stand in recess. Meeting to order. And we will proceed with action item 6B, consider service contract for fumigation of City Hall for pest infestation. Roger.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, over the last few years, it's got a little bit more dicey in terms of the termites on these beams and stuff like that. It hasn't affected the council chambers, but at our office down there are 3 or 4 sites that every morning we come in and then there's termite droppings on the desks and stuff like that. And it's getting to the point where I felt that we should address that very soon. Unfortunately, what happened is I didn't anticipate it in this year's budget. I only put $1,600 away, and the bids came in, and you can see in my summary, one was $5,000, the other was $7,000, you know. And so what I've recommended is that we go forward with this and tent. And when we tent, we're going to tent not only this building here, but as well as the fire department. Yeah, right, and stuff like that. So I'm asking is that in the impact fees, we've collected, since I've been here in 2011, we've collected $412,000 of miscellaneous building permits over the years. And I've allocated those in so much dollars in the sewer, water, traffic impact fees, parks, recreation. And there's the last impact fee that we have, and it's civic and public buildings. And we've accumulated about almost $27,000 into that. And what I would recommend is in the transfer is to transfer $5,000 out of that and put it in with the $1,600, and then let's go forward with the tinning and the termite infestation abatement and stuff like that. Because I think it's important. If we let it go much longer, it's going to get much worse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Roger, did you mention the library?
Yeah, that was just in the windowsill and everything like that, and we can spray that, and it's isolated. It's not rapid in the whole building. It's just in one specific area, and we're looking at all of the buildings collectively and stuff like that. And I climbed up into the attic at the community center the other day just to kind of take a look and see how that's going and everything. But I'm going to have, when we finish with this, I'm going to have Western or Clark's Pesta to go in and inspect the community center and the corporation yard as well as the library.
Great.
Yeah. Well, I had Western do my residence 2 years ago, and they did a good job. If you live around here long enough, you see almost every house on the street at some point or another tenant. It seems like there's almost a rule of thumb, like every 10 or 12 years you got to do it. So it's,
and we won't be in it, so fine.
It just needs some every little bit of food or coffee or anything like that you need to drag out beforehand.
Yeah. This building was built in 1957, by the Nylands and dedicated to the city. This was the post office for a long time, and it's about time, because 57, that's what, 55, almost 60 years.
Yeah.
It hasn't been tenanted in the whole time?
No.
Wow.
It's exceptional.
Yeah.
Tony, any?
I'm a little leery in my house. I got to find that spray that we're going to use.
Yeah.
Because that seems like a reasonable price, $5,200.
Yes.
Do it
Yeah.
over a weekend.
Yes.
While we're in session.
Anything, Jim?
Yeah, unless we can make an ordinance and have no termite ordinance that I don't think they read, so we should pass a law. But other than that, we better do it. Because it ain't going to get better.
Okay. Any public comment? No, okay. I Totally agree, so, I don't know. Do we have them,
We
what
don't
do you
make-
need from us, Roger? Is it,
I would say this is a motion to award the proposal from Western,
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
The second was,
John.
John?
okay. Let's see, Councilmember Bach,
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman,
Yes.
Councilmember DeFreeze's absence, Vice Mayor West.
Yes.
Mayor Martirana.
Aye.
With 4 members of the council being present, the motion is taken by the maker passes 4001.
Okay, thank you. And item 6C, consider contract for city website redesign.
All right, this one's mine. Ever since I was hired in the fall, and since the new council members came on in the fall, there's been a big push for transparency and upgrading the city's ability to communicate effectively with its citizens. So one of the things that was in discussion was an upgrade of the website. Starting before Christmas, I did a lot of research on website redesign companies. There are tons of them out there. Read a lot about it and narrowed it down to a few good candidates. I really wanted to find something that gave us the ability to communicate more effectively, such as more intuitive navigation for the web page itself, more engagement opportunities, more efficient and effective online communications, something that was easy to use as opposed to code-based. Currently, we have one that you really need to know how to do a little bit of code writing to make significant changes to the website, and it requires a dedicated webmaster. I worked previously on a Drupal site for Soquel Creek Water District that was pretty intuitive. I also set up the Weebly account for the general plan workshop when I was a student at Cal Poly, and now have converted that over to use for the strategic planning committee. And it's just you get to see how easy it is to edit and use an upgraded website with some of these new technologies. So I did some exploration. I narrowed it down to 3 companies: Revise, Civic Plus, and Gov Office. And then I moved forward and set up demos with all 3 companies after talking to their representatives. I evaluated those demos based on a pretty wide variety of criteria, which is in attachment 1. I put together a table with, I don't even know how many of these categories this is, but it's a lot. And just a couple of the important ones were things like functionality for the users that visit the site, functionality for the administrators who will be using it, posting stuff, responding to people, putting out alerts, things like that. Graphic design, the 2 top candidates both had a really good program of providing things like a color palette and certain branding things. Some even offered to do city logos and things like that. Style guides. Cost was obviously one of the important factors. Security, technical support, and then there's certain added ones, and this is where there's some overlap with the strategic planning committee recommendation about emergency alerts, newsletter creation, agenda creation. I mean, all the modules involved in these allowed you to do some pretty cool things. So after the analysis, I pretty quickly eliminated Gov Office. It's just their low end wasn't that different from our current website, and their high end wasn't competitive with the low end of the other 2. So that was a pretty easy one to push off to the side. And then the other 2 were pretty competitive in terms of graphic design, color palette, redesign options every 4 years or so to keep the site fresh, free module upgrades. They both had mobile admin apps. They both allowed for public service requests, which is a really cool feature that's tied into GIS, so you can actually let people who visit the site pin by GIS where a pothole is or things like that. So it's a really cool feature. Online forms, agenda creation. They all had some sort of analytics, whether that was Google Analytics or some other kind of analytics to examine how many people are visiting the site, how long they stay there, what kind of stuff they click on. It's something I've used lightly before, but it's a really cool capability. And then, like I said, the emergency alert notifications was a key one because I knew certain people on strategic plan committee were pushing for separate software that allows you to do mobile alerts. And so when I realized that that was actually a part of some of this, I thought that was a good thing to have included. Revise, however, set itself apart in a couple of ways. Cost, obviously, was an important one, and their opening bid was half of what Civic Plus's opening bid was, and even after I bargained them down a little bit, it's still significantly cheaper. They also have no rate increases over time. Most of these other website redesigns have, after year 3 or so, a technology update fee of something like 3 to 5% that they tack on to your subscription fee after that, and they don't, to encourage you to have loyalty. There were more branding services, including a custom style guide, and the newsletter capability was something that, while I know I've brought this to the council before and you said you don't want us working on that currently, I like the ability to do that in the future should we have more staff or more staff time to devote to that. So I think the recommendation here would be that you direct the city manager to enter into a service agreement with Revise for website redesign and content management services, which includes a one-time setup fee and then an annual fee thereafter for the services shown below. The one-time setup fee was $7,500 and the annual fee for services was $1,800. And then, there's a way just like with iWork where we do a down payment of $3,000 to get started on the process now. And then when we get to the new fiscal year or when they develop, when we get to the sort of kickoff point for the new website, then the rest of it will come due. So, let's talk about it.
Is this in the budget now?
There's the down payment. There was a budget line, another item that is not going to be used by the end of the year that we've budgeted for. We just don't have time to get it put into place. So there was a budget 15 line item 800 is where that 3,000 would come from for the down payment, and then we would budget for the rest next fiscal year.
And what was that item that's not going to be used?
It's the partition for the front desk.
Got it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a little bit behind schedule on building. I've got it designed, but it's just, we're having a hard time fitting it with the beam and the counter space, location.
We don't want another one of those incidents.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Okay.
Would the iWork program that you're now using, could it merge with this, or do you have to have it open in separate windows? Or?
Yeah, you would have it linked to the iWork software.
Okay.
Yeah.
It linked so you could talk back and forth, or?
No, there would just be a link to go to the iWork portal, basically. Yeah.
And so the iWork, which has the forms, would have the forms and applications.
So the thing is about iWork is that the way we're going to start out is that we're not going to put a lot of emphasis on the public's side of it at first, because we really need to get a handle on how to use it internally. So eventually we'll make the web portal for iWork much more robust and allow people to hopefully submit their building permits and things like that through the software without even coming into the office. But to start, we need to make sure we know how to do it ourselves first. So.
Okay, but I think what John's getting at is that's not going to be that seamless potentially. We don't know what that's going to look like.
Well, I mean, all you do is just have a page that's, building, and then have a link that says, building permits, licenses, and land use applications. Click here, and it would just take you right over. So,
okay,
I don't see that as too complicated.
Okay. Jim, anything?
I just get nervous when staff uses words like neat.
And cool.
And cool. That's cool. That's I go, whoa. We don't want to pay for neat and cool. We just want a kind of mundane.
You guys go ahead. I still have one of these phones.
Yeah.
Tony, any?
So could we, for example, could we attach the budget that to the website?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a very there will be a much better form and document repository on the website than we have now. Right now it's very scattered. I mean, some things I still forget where they are, and I use it every day. So
I do too. I look for the agenda, and I had to type in agenda in the search function to get to it.
Yep.
Because it was pain fun.
Yeah.
John, you could find it.
Okay. My only concern is the budget. Roger, are you comfortable with this from a budgeting standpoint?
Yeah, I'm still comfortable because there's still some money in there, even though we're taking $3,000 out of it, so that we can start the initial work to do it, because I've got to move that counter just a little bit to facilitate where the beams are going to go to support the glass partitions.
Gotcha.
And I think the other thing that this, in terms of the budgeted money, is that this really does truly eliminate the need for a dedicated webmaster. I mean, you don't need to write code at all to use this. So, moving forward and looking at, whatever our staffing needs are and getting those roles filled, this is a tool that anyone new in whatever position they are will be able to go on and use it for whatever parts they need to modify.
So a person who basically is a data entry person could do this?
Oh, yeah.
Insert a PDF document into the proper space and...
Yeah, and you have the ability to also, when you add administrators to the site, you have the ability to restrict what they have access to. So if it was someone who, is a very entry level and only knows how to do one or two things, you can teach them how to do those one or two things, and that is all they have access to.
So I'm familiar with Weebly. Mm-hmm. Is it a similar sort of interface?
It's not quite as drag and drop, but that's good in a lot of ways, because I find the drag and drop a little limiting, and this gives you a little bit more freedom. And these guys are definitely very passionate about the design of their sites. That was one thing that really came forward when I did the demos, is that they were excited about the different sort of modules they were talking me through and sort of parts of the site they were showing me. So.
Okay. First I wanted to ask you a question. In terms of the work that's been going on at the Strategic Plan Committee, does this seem in line, would you say, with what they're...
Yes, I think that they're going to like this.
Okay.
Their ideas would be for that PIO officer probably to be the number one person to do this.
Sure.
And such.
Okay.
I like it. They're from my old hometown.
Oh, great.
Michigan.
Any questions or comments from the public? This is a...
There's a public and a lot of people here today. I'm trying to picture what we're doing here as far as is this something that can be adapted to, or if you have a laptop, you can see what the council members here will be able to view the agenda and all that kind of stuff? Mm-hmm. Is it going to come with a communication system where it's for administration purposes? Mm-hmm. It comes with notes and messages that go with that. Is that how that's going to work on the website? In other words, it's built in just for staff, city councilmen, planning commission, all that kind of. They have a network that they can work with, sending notes back and forth, communicating.
No,
nothing like that. Okay.
No.
You saw his phone. You think he can use something like that?
Yeah. No, I mean, Dave, it's a website. It's essentially, we're talking about a website.
Yeah.
Putting together a
I've
website.
been playing with the website you got now and stuff like that, and with being with IBM for 27 years, I think I know a little bit about that. But if you need a guinea pig, to kind of test the waters here and see where we can apply it, beyond that, I'd be happy to help.
Good. That was actually something I didn't talk about. Is that what the next step would be with this? Is that it's a multi-stage process to develop this, and I really would like because we do have limited staff time, either a subcommittee here, a group that we put together, people from Strategic Plan Committee, Planning Commission, and here, members of the public, people, or the San Juan Committee, as a matter of fact, because they have obviously done some great branding and color stuff already. So I would definitely love to put together some kind of a group to work with on this should we move forward with it.
great. That makes a lot of sense to me.
It would help, to communicate, you've got people going out and reporting, everything could be thrown into the system, where it's right in front of you all the time, and it's real time.
Yeah.
And that was the big message from the last election, more openness and more communication.
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely. Very clear.
Yeah, I think my letter, which is a response to the recommendation from the Strategic Planning Committee, their recommendation from their last meeting, is going to flush this out a bit more, but you're not going to see it for a month. But the gist of it was that, I've put in significant work on this over the last couple of months, and this is a great centralized way to start that dialogue. Right. And I think the things that it provides might make Nextdoor, Facebook, some of those other programs a little redundant once we actually get the hang of using this. So my recommendation from that, not for a spoiler or anything, was going to be to just give me a little time to try to get this set up and working the way it's designed to work, and then we'll see if we need that as supplemental. But you'll see that.
Okay.
I think what drove Matt and I to really push for this is that there's so much information on the social media, both on Facebook and Twitter, that doesn't reflect the full programs that we have and the half-truths, and it's caused a lot of consternation on our part.
Certainly on mine too. I mean,
exactly.
the lack of factual information is staggering.
Yeah, right.
And the other added benefit here, and sort of another strategy that can be used with this is, I know we did this at SoCo Creek, is that we identified a list of local champions for the organization, and then we used the website to produce blog posts, newsletters, all kinds of fact-based materials that they would then share on Facebook, Nextdoor, all those different things to get that out there. But that's how you control the central messaging, is by having a really good, robust, informative website to begin with.
Sure.
I'm for it.
Okay.
Yeah, me and Tony be on the subcommittee.
That might be a great idea. If they don't break it,
if they can, right. There's some truth to that. Okay. Any other questions, comments? And so you're looking for
a motion,
direction, or from us?
And there is a resolution on it.
Oh, there is.
What number is that resolution?
Oh my gosh.
That will be 10.
10. I'll make a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista approving an agreement between the city and Revise for the website redesign services.
I'll second that.
There's our committee.
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeVries is absent. Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
And Mayor Marciano?
Aye.
All, with 4 members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the mayor passes 4001.
Thank you. And action item D, City Council deny claim filed by Alma Sosa on March 3rd, 2017, and forward to Parsac for investigation and processing. Is this Deborah or?
Well, it's a claim. Yeah, it's a claim that came to us through a wrongful death that occurred back in September of 2016 of a pedestrian killed at the intersection of 156 and the Alameda. And so it's customarily that we deny the claim and forward it to our assurance carrier so that they can adjudicate the merits of it.
Okay. Deborah, did you have
know
anything
that
to add?
when you deny the claim, it starts the statute of limitation running. So there's 180 days then for them to file a lawsuit against the city. And if you didn't deny the claim, they'd have 2 full years to file their lawsuit. So it's a benefit of the city under the Government Tort Claims Act for the city council to deny this claim. And I would also say that I think it's very doubtful that the city has liability for an accident on 156, but we're represented by Parsac, and so that's up to Parsac to hire an attorney and make sure that they know that. But I would make sure that the deputy city clerk does have the mayor sign a letter and send it to this Ms. Souza that denies the claim, just because that's what starts the statute of limitation running, is the letter, not the actual denial.
And just to give you a background, both Trish and I and Matt have researched a lot of the public right-of-way and agreements and maintenance agreements between the state and the city, and we've forwarded that to our insurance carrier.
Okay. Gentlemen, Jim, anything?
No.
Questions, Tony?
Make a motion to deny.
I think we want to,
Oh, okay.
John, do you have anything?
I remember the incident well, but it wasn't that long ago, but I agree we should deny it. State
Okay.
property.
Any public comment?
No, I don't.
Okay, anybody? No? Okay, I would agree. So, Tony?
I make a motion to deny the claim of, filed by Alma Sosa on March 3rd, 2017.
Reject without reason?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Councilmember Bach?
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeFreeze is absent. Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Marciano?
Aye.
With 4 members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker. Passes 4-0-0.
Okay, thank you. Now, discussion items. All right. Letter A, develop a process for hiring a city manager. So, gosh, some time ago, Roger told us that he would be retiring in the indeterminate future at some point in the next, not in the not too distant future. And so, after a conversation with City Attorney Mall, I thought it was appropriate for us to get the ball rolling on figuring out how to proceed in identifying a replacement. I know she has some thoughts and would like to address the council on that, and probably Roger probably has some thoughts on that.
Okay, well, I would say that often this falls to the city attorney, even though this is an illegal issue, to assist with the hiring of the city manager, because there's really nobody in staff that can, that's under the city manager that can help and hire somebody that's above them. So I'm kind of on equal footing with the city manager. So I've assisted several cities with this process, and typically what you see is either the city has already identified someone they want to promote within, and so it happens quite quickly, or the city hires a recruiter. There is a list of about, I'd say, 5 to 8 recruiters in the state that will come and start the recruitment process. And so I've provided the mayor actually with a list that has been used in another city I work for. And typically somebody would, usually it's a subcommittee of the city council that's appointed that would interview these recruiters and try to find a reasonable price. It is, at least my experience, that it costs, usually about $20,000 to hire a recruiter. They go through this process with the city council, where they sit down with the city council and the public, and they try to identify the goals and the direction and what they want this candidate to look like. And so usually it takes a couple of meetings to figure out, who the person, what you're recruiting for, and then they do either statewide or nationwide recruitment and conduct the interviews, and then they'll go back to the city council with a list of typically 8 to 10. Well, sometimes they'll come with 30 or 40 and ask the city council to assist in bringing that down to a number that they can interview. Then they'll set the interviews with the city council where they can interview and select the candidate. And I have seen situations where the city council has to go through the process 2 times or 3 times sometimes to get the right candidate. once you start whittling it down, it's sometimes you don't have the person there. So my concern is that it will take some time. Probably the most rapid process would take you 6 months. When you think to get a new city manager, because then they're going to have to leave their job, give notice, ostensibly move if they're not in the area. So that would be really quick to get a new city manager seated in 6 months. I've seen them take a year or more when there haven't been good candidates. And my concern with this city is that you have a city manager who really has to be a jack of all trades, know how to run a water system. So you have some unique abilities here, and you don't have a finance director, you don't have an HR director, you don't have a public works director, and so your city manager does all those jobs. And so this will be a unique candidate that can know how to do finance, know how to do HR, etc., that Roger currently does. So I would urge you to get the process started as soon as possible. If you don't decide to hire a recruiter, and I know that's a big financial commitment, then you would probably get a council subcommittee, because then you could act outside of the Brown Act. You wouldn't have to have notice meetings. But it's kind of a difficult process without somebody there to really get everyone's decision and put it together about the candidate and then narrow it down. It's a lot of work for a subcommittee. So I've never worked with a city before that's done it through a subcommittee. It's possible, but that would be a decision that you'd have to make.
That's what we did when we hired Roger.
Subcommittee?
20 plus resumes.
A recruiter or a
We've
subcommittee?
never used a recruiter.
Never?
No, not in the 12 years I've been here.
I don't know how we got it out.
The advertising piece is in. Can I, just a moment. What was you, so before we get to that, I'd like to hear from Roger. Is that all right? I'd like to just get your take on process.
Well, I've always advocated that the council has to look at that candidate in the eyes and get a feel of what they can, how they can meet your objectives and criteria and stuff like that. And I always appreciated, even in my career where I had interviewed all the time, I didn't particularly want the job, but I would interview just to hone my skills. I had appeared in front of a lot of city councils and got to know them and stuff like that, and it was a very personal relationship and stuff like that. But what I think Deborah's talking about is the process of isolating and bringing these people and then going through the mirage of paperwork to get you maybe the final candidates, stuff like that, and that's one of the hardest parts, is to narrow it down to where you can look at maybe a half a dozen of the top candidates that you feel that would best meet your needs and for the city of 2,000 people. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Tony. Did you?
Well, no. Anyway, what I was going to say, I guess we ran an ad in Western Cities.
There's that, and just put it out there. I think locally to the newspapers and all that.
Yeah.
We're looking. The last time, I think it was the intent of the council to hire someone that was more local.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it came
That
down
lived
to.
local.
Because we got
Feel for the area.
We got 20 plus application resumes, whatever they call it in the league. And somehow we narrowed it down to 4 that we asked to come in and sit out here and interview them. And the real problem in my mind was that other than Roger, nobody was local. So you ask, well, are you going to move here from Danville? Well, I'll commute, And the manager we had before commuted to Coalinga and back. So we knew that wasn't real. But it was a process, and I felt, you know, I mean, Roger was a slam dunk because, like Deborah said, he covers it all. He's our city engineer, he's our public works director, and to find a guy like that, I'm just making him commit to staying through my term. and then you guys. But
So-
no, it was, I believe, like I say, we didn't hire, well, we didn't have the money.
Yeah.
We didn't have that kind of money. We were, basically, when Roger came in, we were close to broke.
Okay.
And so, and then the salary that was a big thing. Most of these guys wanted, and this is 6 years ago now, right? Yeah, they wanted, you know, 10,000 a month, things like that.
Okay.
So, like, you're looking at a very difficult process to find the city manager for San Juan Bautista.
Sure.
And the perplexity of it is like Deborah said, you have to wear a lot of hats in a small city.
Sure.
And you have to do a lot of other things and everything. And you got to know not only sewer and water, but you got to know administration as well as financing, as well as planning. And planning is one of the bigger obstacles because I spend a lot of time in planning, and I know Matt now is taking it over, and that's a horrendous responsibility because of the noticing and the stuff and the secret guidelines and the stuff. And between the finance and the planning, that's probably one of the more technical issues that, yeah.
Sure. Because if you look at smaller cities, you know, you look at Hollister and the staff that they've done.
Yeah,
Well, they've
understood.
got,
Big.
What, 18 times as many people over there, I mean, in population, so they can afford that, but.
Right. John?
Well, I was going to ask Deborah, there's some small towns around this area. Delray Oaks, you name one, they only have like 6,200 people, which is actually smaller than us. I don't believe Sand City's too much bigger. They have a lot of industry. You know, because I also have read where city managers, usually their tenure is between 4 to 6 years and they move on for a variety of reasons. So there's kind of a constant churn, if you know what I mean. And I was wondering if you knew of any in those smaller cities around here.
Well, you should actually talk to Delray Oak because they managed to go through a process where they hired somebody from Monterey and they never, they did it quite quickly. They never went through advertisement. They just kind of, and then I know Hollister recently, when they did their city manager, they did it quite quickly. So if you have somebody in mind and, that fits the profile, I think you could get them in and hired. I think if you don't have somebody in mind, then that's where it becomes difficult because that's when you have to make the list of what the person needs to do and then recruit for that person. And being on the edge of the Bay Area, I think if you look at salaries in Morgan Hill, for example, as opposed to what you're going to pay here, I mean, there's going to be a huge differential, and so it's going to be a little bit difficult to get that exact person. But I would ask Delray Oaks, how they went about the process because they did do it quite quickly, and I don't know how.
Jim, any thoughts on process? We're
All I
talking
know-
process here.
I know, I don't really have any thoughts on the process.
Okay.
I think we should try and do it on our own a little bit, look around.
In-house? Okay. So I asked for the org chart and a job description be included in the packets just as a sort of as a reference, because I think that regardless of who we're looking at, whether it be someone like Matt potentially who's already here, who I think has a strong future here potentially.
Yes.
Regardless of who we identify, we need to have we need to be thinking about what we're looking for in that candidate, what capabilities, qualifications, and then I think it's not likely that we're going to find the range of skills that Roger has brought to the position in a single person. I think that's very unlikely. So we're going to have to think about where we need the manager, the executive to have the strongest competencies to then manage the other persons, the other staff or contractors that are going to fulfill those other functions. So I just, like I say, I wanted to get the ball rolling here. It sounds like everybody is interested in us pursuing this without the use of a consultant at this point anyway. Okay, so shall we, do you think, create an ad hoc committee to start the process? Roger, did you have something to add?
And collectively, each one of you should put the priorities of what you would like to see in the city manager. Strong financing, strong planning,
right.
Strong HR, a background in good water, stuff like that. And highlight those things so that when you're looking at that individual, he has a certain degree of knowledge in those areas. That's the key to it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think my suggestion would be that we create an ad hoc, take a couple of us to start assembling that information and tasking the rest of us with coming up with those sorts of lists, reviewing the job description, the org chart for those sorts of qualifications. Anybody, any thoughts on that? Is that agreeable or not, or any other suggestions for an alternative? Does that seem like the process? Yes?
Very agreeable.
Tony? Okay. Do you have any comments from the public? Any questions or comments?
Speaker card from Rachel Ponce.
Wonderful.
I was sorry to read about Roger's retirement. Not only did I want him to be here for Tony's tenure, but for my lifetime. But I know that I don't have to tell all of you what a great job Roger has done in the short time that he's been here. He took us from really a real bad place to now hearing that, we're doing well financially and all of that development and the water and all of that is moving along. I did want to say that though I know that you guys, the council, have the last word on who you hire, I did want to request that maybe you could do some kind of a public meeting to where maybe the public could come and give you a wish list of what the community would like in a city city manager. I think that what you are all talking about is good, but I think that we as a public also have different needs or wants. And I really hope that you will do it, if you do it, that you do it in a public forum and not just rely on your digital friends. I think that we all have to come and talk about what we need. I mean, everybody has needs. But I think giving it a public forum, I think, is a better way of really getting to know what everybody's thinking about, and there could even be some discussion to where you might be able to come up with a real good list of wants for a candidate, besides what you have been thinking about.
Sure.
And maybe if you can't hire a recruiter, maybe you could hire a facilitator to where that way that they can kind of walk you through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah. Sorry to do a card.
It's okay.
Once again, my name is Jackie Morris, Mission Street. So I think that it would be a great idea what Mrs. Ponce just said, but I was also thinking that Mr. Grimsley, it seems like he's very unique that he has all of those skills, and you don't see that anymore. Everyone's specialized. I was just thinking, in order to save the city money and trying to find someone that possibly could never fit his shoes with all the skill set he has, that maybe promoting from within. And you do have some solid people in public works. Why not take a look at the staff that's there and maybe in-house promoting them, just as you're considering maybe promoting Matt. There's people in public works that maybe are doing the job, but at a tech level, and maybe fostering, their potential to be city works director and take care of water and whatnot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
And with the comments there, I think one aspect that is probably very important today is the communication skills and the ability.
Clearly.
And that is, you have to be a people person and almost an extrovert in communications.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to make a suggestion that if you decide to do it in-house, there might be somebody that would help you, like maybe at the Panetta Institute, that, a graduate student that's looking to maybe facilitate the meeting with the public and work on that as part of their leadership project, or maybe somebody from Hartnell. I mean, there might be somebody that could step in and do that role instead of being a recruiter, actually get a moderator to kind of narrow things down.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
I don't know who you're going to appoint to this committee, but I think we should sit down with Roger.
I agree.
And write this stuff down. Communications.
No, I agree. I think that that's the starting point, is looking at the documentation that exists today and then fleshing that out and then taking the wish lists, pulling it all together, and then starting to filter through it and assigning priorities. But that would be...
And that's important too, is that you have to know there are some impending projects that have to get going, and those are the priorities that you guys have to establish. And, and then when you start looking at people, who's best to carry on those things.
Right, right. So, any volunteers? John, you and I have talked about this. Are you...
I guess.
Wow, you don't seem too enthusiastic.
Another meeting,
Yeah, that I understand. Jim, any interest?
I have interest, but you can't have 3 people on it. Can you?
No, I know. I'm the two of you.
I can let Jim do it.
No.
I'm suggesting the two of you potentially.
Oh, you just...
What?
Do you want to?
No, it breaks my heart to try to find somebody.
That's what I thought. Jim, are you?
I'm willing. Yes, I'm willing.
Okay. Not anxious.
Not overly enthusiastic.
Okay, then perhaps John and I would be.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay. So then we will have an ad hoc committee. Do we need any vote on creation of an ad hoc committee, or I just get to lord over it? Oh, good. Okay, so we're going to create an ad hoc committee to, what should we call this? Is it developing the process or for hiring a city manager?
I would say hiring a city manager. Developing process and hiring.
Okay.
So it'd be a council vote, but to bring
Right.
the council candidates for
And identify, okay. Okay. Candidates. Okay, so it's an ad hoc committee to develop a process and identify city manager candidates. And that will be John Freeman and myself. Okay. Okay, anything else on that item? No. Okay, curb painting, I think we're gonna pass that one till the rain stop again?
It's on the radar. I've advised the Public Works crew that's a top priority, and the paint wagon has been refurbished and cleaned up and ready to roll. And Nick's done a good job of getting it. He had good experience with the city of Davis, and so he knows that paint wagon inside and out now.
Oh, very good. Excellent. And John, worked with the San Juan Aroma School District on joint use of school basketball courts after hours.
Well, I met with the superintendent about a week ago, and
terrific.
Her name is Michelle Houghton, and the meeting went very well. She said she's going to give me a copy of what they've done before, and so I got that this morning via email, and so I've only gotten to the first page, going through it. So I need to go through it and make a few recommendations.
Good.
And then give it to Deborah and Roger and let them make recommendations and go through it and see what's what. And
great.
They just, their director of facilities retired February 1st, and they haven't replaced him yet. So
Bill left and is going to Belize, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So we're kind of in a no man's land right now.
Sure.
Yes, is what I'm trying to say. So,
okay. But it's in process.
Yeah,
so
it's in
you're
process.
Working on it. Well, so we'll save that one for the next meeting.
Let me
Did
get
you?
through the next 6 pages.
Yes, I have a speaker card from Rachel Ponce.
I know that the fencing around the school was not a popular thing with the community. And when they did it, when the board decided to do it, I think that it was more of a vandalism issue. But I have a real concern about what the district is saying now about that it's an insurance issue. Because before the fencing went up, there was no insurance issue. Anybody, the kids or anybody could go on the school grounds. I mean, you weren't prohibited from being in the school grounds. And so now when they have the fencing, they're talking about insurance. So I think that that's something that maybe the city can bring up to them and question that, because before there wasn't any insurance issue. And I know that other school districts have their playgrounds open for, people to use it. So I really question the insurance thing, and I just wanted to mention that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do too, and I completely agree with you. For example, within the same school district, Aroma School is completely open, and anyone can go in there at any time and run the track, play basketball, do it, volleyball, whatever they want. And the same school district, different school, you can't do that. So, they have one particular board member who's kind of sticky on the insurance issue.
Yeah.
The track is.
No, it's not. There's a fence for it.
They've got pretty big fences too.
I think we can work with it, and John's got the right tact. He says, let's take a look at it, meet with them and everything. There's got to be some common ground that we can get there.
Yeah, I think it was just that there just was no communication, and now we've opened the paths of communication. I'm sure it'll pay dividends. Okay, letter D, use of the old Boy Scout building / Public Works offices. There was, I would say, distress amongst some folks in the public over displacing the Boy Scouts, and I frankly have no idea if that actually is what happened or what's going on with that building, and I thought it would be helpful for some information about what's going on over there.
Well, I don't know how long the Boy Scouts have been in there. They were in there when I came and everything, but prior to that, that was City Hall years ago before this building was built. And then after this building was built, then it turned into the police station as well as the Public Works. And then in '84, when I was here helping out the city, it was the Public Works and Engineering Department and stuff. And somewhere between '84 and I don't know when, they turned those rooms over to the Boy Scouts. And Joe, who runs the Public Works Department, was resigned to a little 8x8 office, and that's where he ran everybody through and stuff like that. And so I approached the Boy Scouts because I was a little bit distressed over the period of years that they've been there, that they just totally trashed the place inside, didn't maintain it, as well as they didn't lift one finger since I was here of maintaining the building and requested to say, hey, can we paint it? Can we fix it up and everything? It was just totally disconnected. And I told the scout leader that many times, and stuff like that. And of the scouts that I did use, most of them were from Hollister and the Troop 55 who would come in, and 3 years in a row I had them painting curbs and stuff like that. But not once did that troop scout volunteer to help us out. So when I asked them to give the space up and everything, we gave them a spot at the corporation yard where they could put a container and then store all their goods and everything. And then I told them, I says, if you need a place to meet and stuff like that, you're certainly welcome to fit into our schedule, and we'll let you use the community center, and then they can conduct their normal stuff like that. And so that's how it kind of transpired and everything, because I felt that sooner or later I needed more space for my public works guys. I need a conference. I need a computer system where they can communicate with Matt and I and stuff like that. And the mapping is so important now because of the new meters, and we're going into this new meter reading things. We need a big enough room where we can have maps on our sewer, our water, and the streets and everything. And then I can meet directly with them and to say, hey, these are the plans that we have going forward, because it's getting more complicated as the society meets. And so that's how it was arrived at. And then let alone is my public works crews, they understand they have to maintain that building, as well as I've got them on a program where once we get the outside cleaned up and everything, they're going to paint it, and improve it, say. So that's kind of where it came from.
Okay. So do we... Okay.
And the Boy Scouts still have access, if they want to use the community center. And then I even told them to go down and talk to the VFW, because they could use that occasionally, for their activities.
Okay. And do you know if they've availed themselves of either of those?
I don't know if it, yeah.
Okay. And do you have contact information for the scout leaders?
Yes.
Would you please pass that to me?
Okay, yeah.
I'd like to reach out to them and see.
And I was a Boy Scout and an Eagle Scout, and many times we met at the Veterans Memorial Building. And we would have our meetings there, and then we would play sports inside the room, and then that was it, and we never had a scout hall, because most of the Boy Scouts, they operated out of the Mormon church or the Veterans Memorial Building or somebody's garage, where many times we were operated right out of a garage, doing our little hobbies and stuff like that. So.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
Well, I have to say one thing with Roger. Joe actually got in touch with me, and he took me in there. This is probably at least a year ago, maybe longer. I couldn't believe the conditions when they had left food in there. There were rats and mice, droppings, and And I told Joe at the time, I said, you tell the scout leader, you got 30 days. I mean, I just kind of arbitrarily took it upon myself. I said, you know, they got to clean this thing up. Apparently they did. But then I think they let it go again.
Okay.
And, you know, it's sort of like, I don't know when that started. I don't even know who led it. I think it might have been Larry King who moved in there, but I don't know of any other city that actually provides a scout hall. What's the motto? Be prepared? Something like that. But I think we made the right decision.
Okay. John, any questions?
Well, I have a little slightly different perspective. I have 3 constituents who live within, you know, literally next door to me, or across the street from me, David and Ben and William, and they're all Boy Scouts, so they're all about 12 to 14 years old, and they all complain vigorously to me because they know I'm on the city council. So they, you know, I'm friendly with them, and they came and really complained. So in their mind, it's been there forever, you know, because they were born in like 2003 or something like that. You know? I mean, let's face it, it's been there forever for them. And so, you know, and I was, you know, I was a Boy Scout also, and the small town I was raised in Southern California did have a kind of a community Scout Center. It doesn't have it anymore. It's not a small town anymore, so you know, that's a bad thing that happened. I didn't know the other side of the story, that they let it go to heck in the handbasket, and you know, that they should get together and have a work day and clean it up. I'm hoping that it does sound like we're crowded for space anyway, the city. We probably need to think long-term about additional spaces somewhere, maybe out at the pellet plant, the new corporation yard, something, you know, build a bigger building where the scout place is at, or the public works center is at now. You know, I'm not saying we have to do this tomorrow, you know,
sure,
anything like that, but long-term, you know, we're going to get 400 or 500 more people in here in the near future. We're going to get bigger, so we're going to need bigger spaces.
I agree. Okay. Jim, anything to add?
I don't know any Boy Scouts, and when I was a scout, we met in a garage. I never had heard of a scout hall.
I think the only guy that flunked out of Cub Scouts.
Yes, I was. That's better.
I would like to point out is there, the Cub Scouts has the other end of the building there, and we leave that there. They have a little wood shop in there, and they make all our signs for our city, and they do a good job of it and everything, and so we've let them stay in there, you know.
Okay, interesting. Okay. Any questions or comments from the public? No?
Couldn't we share it with the Boy Scouts?
I don't know.
It's got a lot of machinery in there, and you know, saws and stuff like that they do, and the chiseling and everything. And I mean, there's room in there, but it's not a lot of room, you know, because it's really a workbench and stuff like that. And the Cub Master, he keeps a tight rein on them, because when you're around tools, you've got to be very diligent on these kids. Yeah.
Are those our tools?
No, it's theirs. Yeah.
In our building? Jesus, I'd get them out of there.
We're finding all sorts of things out.
We're letting, I mean, the liability if somebody gets hurt with a chisel or something like that.
Boy, I'm glad I brought it up.
Yeah.
It is a liability. I mean, I recognize it. I go through it, and I want to make sure that all the machinery has the safety stuff on it, you know.
Sure.
And the Cub Master is very diligent about it.
Good.
Now, you know.
Okay.
I think we ought to look at this.
Okay. We can agendize it if you would
Agendize that. I think we ought to take a tour or something and go and look and see what they're doing over there.
Chris,
Yes, sir.
San Juan Service Club is a sponsor of the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts in town. We pay their charter. And I know they are meeting at the Veterans Hall now.
They are?
Yeah.
Okay,
Cub
thank
Scouts
you.
For sure. I'm not totally sure about the Boy Scouts, but I know the Cub Scouts because I've been over there when they can meet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Little children.
Okay, so let's move on.
Is there an issue with it, or the Scouts still, I know they were upset at first, but I don't think they're upset as much anymore.
It came up, and we only meet once a month, so we wanted to be able to ask
questions.
questions.
I think the fact that they're not in there anymore.
Okay.
They
Well,
had their issues with the building too. They said the water came in and flooded.
gotcha.
There were issues from their point of view also, as far as, and just, the city had issues with theirs. But
Sure.
I think they're beyond it, so I'm not sure there's
Okay.
an issue anymore.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, item E, discuss budgeting for a grant writer in the next fiscal year. I had thrown this out a year ago, and we didn't pursue it. But I personally, I feel very strongly that we should be looking at how we can get a grant writer either on a consulting basis or as a staff member, because I think there's, in talking to Matt, when you first were here, you identified a number of grants that we were eligible for in theory, but simply did not have staff time to take advantage of them. So I personally feel very strongly that we should add this, or we should be talking about how we can do this, whether it's on a consulting basis and identifying somebody to do it where there's no out-of-pocket, or going ahead and hiring somebody, adding a position. And so I wanted to bring that before you guys.
So as I remember, on the city council workshop we had, I believe it was January 20th,
Something like that.
17th? Okay. That afternoon, that was a very high priority with the public too. The public that attended that workshop, they really wanted us to do that. So, that puts me, 100% behind it. From what I have been told, and that most grants, the grant writer literally writes his or her, I call it a commission, but they call it a salary, into the grant itself. So we don't have to per se hire a person as a W-2 employee. I guess it's more of a 1099 situation, if you know what I mean. And so, I think that way it's a kind of win-win, because we don't have to put out any money, and we just need to identify a person who can do it.
Okay.
I would think, even if we had to put out money, it's like it's an investment, and try it for a while, see if something comes of it. Like everything else we do, we look at the cost, we look at the benefit, and if it pays off, we do it. If it doesn't, we don't. We might even have to try it for a couple of years to see what we get.
Yeah, I think my concern, or my hesitation with doing it on a consulting basis is we don't have any control at that point.
Yeah.
And if it is a staff person, we know that they're working on our grants.
Yeah.
Because it's somebody outside, they're going to be cherry picking it,
And they also may be making promises that the city can't meet.
Potentially.
We had a consultant, I guess you would call it, this is several years ago, and I don't think she ever got us a grant. We didn't pay her anything, but I think that
Based on
was there. But was it?
So it was based on performance?
I think so. Well, Matt, your school, do they have a curriculum for grant writers? Or
Not at the CSU level, I don't think. That would be more
I think, I think you have to be selective of having somebody research it and identify the grants that you want to go through that is going to be very beneficial to the city. And there are a lot of them. And not just throw out and just say, hey, we're going after grants and everything. And you got to selectively look at matching dollars, because most grants will say, oh, okay, it'll be a 50-50 or an 80-20, and you got to look at it and see what the match is and stuff like that, and what's the best thing that fits your need here.
I was told that there's a lady that lives over near Broadway or somewhere that is a grant writer.
There's a half a dozen people, no, but there's a half a dozen people in town I've been told are grant writers, and including someone that was in the audience tonight. But it's the, you know, again, my question is, do we?
I've over my years in the government, I've written several grants and stuff like that, but my take is that I had to get in the head of the people that were giving the grant and find out what the rule of thumb is and what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And then you write that grant to what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's
Well,
a game that they play and
Right.
everything. And and that's what you want. And the other thing is that you've got to continually have communications with them to make sure that you understand those rules of thumb and the hot buttons that they are going to score the points on and stuff like that. It's just, it's competitive too.
So I know that both Gatlin College and Cabrillo College, which is over in the Santa Cruz area, have departments or classes on grant writing subjects. Possibly, we could approach their, they have, you know, usually employment offices
Right.
built into the college administration, you know, and
Yeah.
maybe we could approach that and see if any suitable candidates turn up, you know. Just
Well, I have a meeting later this month with a professional grant writer to discuss sort of what the options may be, and so
that's good.
I didn't know if anybody else had any firsthand knowledge or, but we're coming up on our budget soon here, and if we're gonna do it, if we choose to hire someone, we need to be thinking about that now and providing direction that this is something that we want to add and that we need to make available. And I'm not sure it needs to be necessarily a full-time person, which would lend itself to what you're suggesting, John, potentially.
Do you know somebody over there that maybe you could get their...
I know someone who took the course. That's all I'm going to say.
You know, if we can
Well, that's
find
easy
their
enough
star
to...
student and hire them on a part-time basis.
And the grants that I were more adamant about, I pursued was the ones that had the highest percentage in there, an 80-20 and an 87 and a 12.
Sure.
And those are the ones that I really bared in on and everything, but
Yeah.
they had a lot of them that were 50-50 grants, and I just
Yeah.
said, no, it's not worth our time. But
Well, I think that the challenge is that you guys are very well suited to writing those grants.
But our time.
I don't want you to do that. I want you to put the pellet plant in,
Yeah.
but next month.
Yeah.
And I don't want any effort spent on this.
Yeah.
But if we can spend $50,000 hiring somebody on a part-time basis with all up, and it results in a single grant, we will have we can easily pay for that
Yeah.
person. And I think there's a benefit. And to your point, there's different pockets, different areas. We have a variety of options, ideas, areas that we'd like additional help. And this seems like an ideal way to do it. So,
I have no problem investing in an employee for a fixed amount of time just to try it out.
sure.
Because everybody wants free grants.
Yeah.
And everybody's looking for free grant writers.
Right.
People who can get grants are not free.
That's what I thought too. I'm skeptical that the free grant writer is going to be very productive because they're just going to have to be chasing the dollar so hard to get by.
Well,
If
we're
our
also-
prospects aren't great for getting the grants, we're not going to get much attention.
And we're also entering a very uncertain period in terms of the availability of grant funding. I know with the
Very true.
new president's proposed skinny budget, it would cut the entire community development block grant program, which is one of the huge ways of getting funding through grants at the state level. So
honestly, I mean, there's money at the community foundation now that is there are San Juan funds dedicated and that no one's applying for. You know, there are a lot of opportunities out there, even locally, that would, you know, benefit us.
Yeah, I read that they dialed back the.
I was told that when I don't know, I couldn't get out of Gary how much was sitting there, but it's the funds that were left over returned after the 156 lawsuit, and that money is sitting there. And what he told me is that, I mean, if we came up with something to apply for, and it's not even a grant. It's our money, it's sitting there.
And there's a whole slew of private foundations up in the Bay Area, like the Lucy Packard. And they give a lot of money to libraries and arts and stuff like that. And it's a matter of getting the contacts and then writing a nice portfolio of what you're going to do, and then you're in being graded.
Well, there's a number of local organizations that are ideally suited to partnership in that regard, but there's nobody to drive it. If we're not going to drive it, it's not going to happen. So, okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, I'm gonna report back after my meeting later this month and leave this on the agenda for next month. Unless anyone objects. Yes. Okay. Okay, and that takes us to item 8. Comments, City Council. Jim? Nothing? Nothing. I will ditto that.
Not after 9:30.
Oh. Tony, anything?
Well, as my granddaughter calls me a blabbermouth, so I'm not going to say anything more.
John?
No, I've commented enough tonight.
Okay. Roger?
I do have a request from the Youth Commission that's going to participate in the Easter Parade. They requested that could we have city pickup pull the trailer for the Youth Commission to be in the parade. And I've told them that I have to get the okay from the City Council to authorize that.
I certainly have no issue with it. I mean, I'd be willing to do it with my truck too, so depending on how big the trailer is. Jim can handle the big one, I can handle the little ones.
I've got my own float.
Okay.
I never miss a float.
Either a half ton or 3/4 ton would be more than that.
Yeah, maybe Tony's truck.
Yeah, I can use my truck. Yeah.
Okay, so that might be a better.
Have cars in the parade this year. I don't think nobody said anything to us.
No cars?
Why don't we see if we can arrange that? Okay. Deborah, anything?
I just wanted to make sure you received the memorandum from me about the California Supreme Court decision. No, you didn't. Memorandum, okay.
Yes.
That if you receive emails or texts concerning the business of the public on your private electronic devices, those are now considered public records. So the three of you have to worry Tony's safe.
That's a shot, Tony.
That sounded like a shot.
Okay. I don't think he's getting any texts, so.
Okay, well, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.